Have you ever wondered what it would look like if someone refused to waste a single moment of their life? That's exactly the kind of vibe you'll get from my guest today, Ethan Jagoda. Although I don't bring it up much in our conversation, Ethan is a phenomenal software engineer. But at the same time, he's also that friend who drags you along to do new and exciting things all the time. Now, if you've been following the channel, you know that I'm obsessed with people who have been able to find their principle or their main thing in life, so to say. And what I love about Ethan is not only did he find that for himself, but he was also be able to articulate and explain exactly where his ideas came from. So as a result of that, of course, we have an incredibly interesting conversation with a few of my favorite topics being why you need to do something truly difficult every single year of your life, why you should never box people into rigid descriptions, and how he approaches building communities and the importance of it. Now, this was originally a 3.5 hour conversation, but I tried to condense it down for you into 2.5 hours. So I'm going to start you off with one of the craziest stories that he has, as well as the enlightenment he kind of went through from this experience. And then from there, I'll dig more into how his mind works and a lot of the lessons he's learned along the way. So welcome back to the Magnus Effect, the podcast where I document the lives of autotelic minds. This is Ethan Jagoda. Please enjoy.
It was an 8-night hike in Tanzania. So I knew I was going, okay? And so I was like, I'm going. And then, of course, I texted my friends that I'm like, are down for this. And, well, one of my friends, Rachel, was super adventurous, super brave person. She's like, let's do it. So me and her, we went, flew down there. First of all, I'll just say this. Even before going to the mountain, I got super sick. On the plane, I just started getting super sick. And I got severe tonsillitis. So on landing, we went to a Tanzanian hospital. Like, I'm talking straight from the airport, straight to the hospital. So I'm like, shit, we have to cancel this thing probably. Miraculously, maybe it was a Tylenol. I wake up rejuvenated. And I'm like, low-key fine. And I was like, what the hell? I don't even know how. And I'm like, Rachel, we already missed our deadline to go. And I'm like, let's look for another one. So there was one leaving the next day. I'm like, let's just do it. I feel like I got this. So right off the bat, I was starting the first hike super weak. Anyway, onto the hike. Every day you basically hike something 15 miles, I think, 15 miles. And you kind of go up a few thousand feet to get acclimatized, and then you go back 1,000 or half because you don't want to sleep when you're at the peak of where you're used to elevation, because you don't enter REM sleep if you're not acclimatized. And I mean, let me tell you, first of all, the thing that makes this hard is the altitude. Like, do not mistake that at any point. And anything I say sounds easy. It would be easy if it was on sea level, It's just the altitude is what makes everything harder. Starting off, like, the second day was our first real day of hiking. I think we had 20 miles. I was still a little sick, so I was really dying at the end. I was really struggling, and that's when I remember having this moment when I really struggled to make it to the end. And I was like, okay, you know what? Like, this is not going to be a thing. Like, normally when I go do an adventure or something, I'm like, how do I make the most experience out of this? Like, how do I maybe, do something silly, goof off or anything? Like, I was like, okay, I need to lock in, bro. I need to lock in because I barely made it today. And I got a lot more days left, so I need to lock in. And after that, I remember being very serious about conserving energy on the hike, all these things, taking breaks when I need to. Just locking in, yeah. Before the summit, every day, you hike so much. You're super sore, very fucking, already I was like, dude, this is definitely the hardest physical thing I've done, right? And every day someone says something like that. The guide goes, just wait till summit day. Like, they literally say, and anyone says anything, they're like, wow, this is like a long hike today. They're like, summit day is twice as long. Dang, the altitude is really hitting you. Summit day is twice as worse. Every day is twice as worse. And the guys would be like, reminding us, no, this is not hard. Summit day is hard. I'm like, Jesus Christ, bro, what the hell is that day gonna be? I actually recorded a vlog with the camera I brought. I told you. I should show it to you after, actually, where I talk about, I was like, Summit Day has come to mean this. It came to mean for me, like, on this trip, can I do the impossible? Like, the way they talk, it's not even about summiting or the day itself. It's like, how far can I push myself? Is the impossible possible? Can I conquer the world, Not even just a mountain.
There's something very confronting about, just knowing, this is hard. This is what hard feels like.
Like, I knew this was hard, and I'm like, Summit Day, they say everything is twice as hard. Every little part. And I'm like, okay, dang.
Do you think they do that purposely?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's honest. I think it's just honest. I don't think the guides are very straightforward with you. I don't think they try to sugarcoat it, and I don't think they try to. Yeah, I don't know. I think they're aware that you're. I'll say one thing that's unlike anything else. They're very aware that like you are here, to, how to say this, to get to the top, and you are not here to
Give up.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's something that came. I guess I'll start by saying this. So anyway, so summit day. Okay, so summit day starts at 11 p.m. You have to hike at night because there's avalanches during the day. So you go start from 11 p.m. and it ends at something like 4 p.m. the next day. So you're hiking for something like 16 hours. If I don't know if I did, yeah, 16 hours, something like that. So right off the bat, things that are different. You take no breaks. I told you this. So once you're above a certain altitude, your body does not recuperate, does not recover.
Yeah.
Because at the end, you're just on a clock. Your brain is slowly running out of oxygen, and if you break, it doesn't change anything. You're still running out of oxygen. The limit is not your muscles. The limit is the amount of oxygen.
Yeah.
So, your summit day is 16 hours of hiking. You're going at the highest you've been. You start at 15,000 and you're going to 19,000. So you literally climb 4,000 feet in one day. It's at night. It's freezing. It's negative. At one point, it's negative 10 degrees, I believe. Negative 10 degrees Fahrenheit. So you have all these layers on. I mean, I'll say this. Rachel is in really good shape, as you know. And 1 hour into summit day, she starts throwing up. And she collapsed and started throwing up. I remember I, of course, stopped for her. And the guide is like, no, you need to keep on going. So you cannot stop. We cannot take breaks. If she's going to make it, she's going to make it, And so one of the guides stayed behind her, with her, to be clear. But they're very serious with this. Things I saw on summit day were crazy. I mean, right off the bat, I saw, a couple hours in, we saw this woman started screaming that her fingers were in pain. And she was screaming, really in pain. And she took them off and they were frostbitten.
Oh my god.
Yeah. And so that was, for context, your group had 5 guides. So it's meant to be so that things happen, right? The groups get split, all these things. So yeah, I mean, it was very crazy because she was screaming. I saw her hand was starting to knot. It was like purple on the ends.
Yeah.
And again, one of them from our group tried to stop. You cannot stop, but one of the guides actually went with her. One of the guides actually walked her down. Ended up, but these people are beasts. The natives now, they ended up catching up with us somehow.
Do they go back or do they take them all the way down, or do they just leave
I
you?
believe that he took her all the way down to the latest base camp.
Oh, okay.
And I don't exactly know what she was doing there or I don't know if maybe she was out the group or what, but yeah, crazy. I'm trying to think other memorable moments. There was this moment where these two super burly Russian dudes that were rock climbers. They were just really into scaling really cool rock and climbers, mountains and all these crazy things. I remember one of them just collapsed on the ground, and someone nearby that wasn't part of our group was like, "Do you need to go home? Do you need to go home?" And mind you, a guide would never ask that. And he was like, he's like, sets for a second. He's like, "Home is on the summit." And I was like, bro, that's such aura. Oh my god, that's crazy, bro. What the hell? Bro, it was crazy. There's so many of these crazy moments. I mean, bro, yeah. Summit day is just like, it's 16 hours of straight hiking. It's extreme altitude, freezing temperatures. It's literally pitch black at night. It was crazy. And I remember there was this moment where just the sun was just starting to come up. And we're on this we're on this trail that has these steep faces on either side. So you can see really down, I don't know, so many, if you fall off, you're going to die kind of on both sides, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I remember looking back and I was like, dude, this is like literally out of like the movie Secret Life of Walter Mitty. Like, I don't know if anyone is.
I love that movie.
Oh, it's such
I watched
an amazing
it.
movie.
Yes.
If you have not, as a listener to this, if you have not seen Walter Mitty and you like kind of stuff we're talking about, you have to see it. It's such a fire movie. I remember thinking, I was like, dude, this is like, I'm in that movie. It's like that level. When the scenes when he's walking across the crest of the mountain, and winds pour like pounding his face. I had ice in my beer. I'm like, this is crazy, right? And this is, I mean, mind you, this was 6 hours into 16 hours. Okay. The craziest part is at the top when I got severely hypoxic. So for hypoxia is just when your brain starts to go into like a crash because of lack of oxygen. And what happens is you experience what's called a hypoxic crash before going into this mode, where your brain floods with endorphins. Yeah, it's crazy. So I was sitting here and like suddenly I literally started crying and I was like looking out of this. I mean, like you're thousands of feet above the clouds. The tallest cloud level you're thousands of feet above. You can see everything and I'm like, I remember literally thinking I spoke to God. I'm not a spiritual person. I'm not religious at all. And I on the way, basically as I was climbing this mountain, shortly after I was talking about the secret life of vulnerability, I started thinking about how this mountain is alive, and just like a living thing that adapts and changes throughout its life, this mountain was born. When I mean, well, for Kilimanjaro was a volcano. It's a volcano. So this mountain was born, when the magma pool ended up building up it, right, and over time, erosion, things like this, take from it, change it. It interacts with the ecosystem. I was just thinking of how mountain is alive, and when I had this hypoxia crash, I thought about this idea and I thought about how the whole world is just one thing. And I think that that's what God is. It's just an amalgam of everything interacting with each other and being one massive life form, if that makes sense.
So when you were speaking to God, it wasn't even like a person or anything. It was just like
I
literally, you were looking
realized
at
I
the
was
top of
just
the
like,
clouds.
I
And
was
you're
just like,
this whole thing is alive.
the world is like one, and I've just never, I don't even know how to describe it other than like, it just seemed so obvious. And I never thought about it.
Yeah.
Never fully, even now as I talk about it, it just sounds like words right now, but it was like it was a feeling.
Yes.
That I will never be able to describe that feeling of feeling like I'm like actually part of this larger organism. And I mean, I literally was just like, give me whatever I need to make it to the top, because that's where I'm going. I'm making it to the top. And shortly after that, when endorphins see that, I was, you're screwed. I was just falling. I would just stumble and I would just fall into the snow completely, and then I'd have to stand up. I'd sit myself up, and then I'd get up. I'd push myself up, and then I'd take 10 steps, and then I would just do the same thing happen. I'd do this again, and again, and again. I'd just fall, I'd just completely basically pass out, and get up again, and I'd pass out, and I'd get up again. And the hypoxic crash was actually right when I hit the false peak, which is about an hour from the real peak. And so I did this for like a full hour of just, mind you, I was far behind the rest of the group. And so when I got, literally, I'm like a couple 100 meters, 100 meters or something like that from the summit. The head guide, okay, because he's with the group, the main group, right? That's way ahead of me. They're actually on their way down, and he sees me, my condition. And so they have a pulse oximeter, which measures your oxygen content on them. And he's like, we need to check you. And he's like, 0 to 10, 0 to 10, 0 to 10, because that's what you do for like checks. How do you feel? I mean, fuck, I was like 0. I literally was like, and he looks at my face, and I held up my face, because I'm telling you, I've never this weak in my life. And I registered a 62 on the pulse oximeter, which I'm sure no one
I don't know what that
knows
means, yeah.
what oxygen percentage saturations are, but look it up or something. It is bad. I'm not supposed to be conscious. That is, most people will pass out before be getting to 62. Yeah, anyway, that's bad. And he takes this and he's like, turn around. We need to get him down. Mind you, I'm 200 meters from the summit. And I locked the fuck in. I said, no, I'm getting to the top. No. I'm getting to the top.
You could string those words together.
And I told him, I was like, if you try to force me down, it will take way longer than just letting me go up top. And he said that. I said that to him. He was like, okay. So I was like, I went up the top. Bro, I'm telling you, like, I wanted to do so many things at the top. I was like, I bought a Berkeley flag. I was going to do that. And I was like, take pictures. I get to the top, and that guide was like, get to the top, but you turn around the second you get there. I'm like, okay, that's fine, deal. So I took one picture. That picture, I looked so sick in it. I looked so... Because I really was. And we turned down. And bro, it's crazy. After all the adrenaline, so much will to get to the top, that's the other part of hypoxia. I've seen documentaries and stuff about people climbing, crazy mountains. The thing that's crazy, that's really the most severe symptom of hypoxia is how tired you feel. There are so many cases of people who are experienced mountain climbers climbing, they've climbed dozens of times before, hundreds of times before, and they fall and they find them asleep on the mountain. They're just asleep and they die there. And it's like, what would empower you to sleep? Because hypoxia makes you so tired, you will literally, even though you know you will die, just fall asleep because willingly. They'll find people in their sleeping bags asleep, and when they should have known they're gonna die if they do that, and they do anyway. And so on the way down, I would just be like, it wasn't like how I was like collapsing because I was so weak. It was more I was just falling asleep. I was micro. One of the guides, I was on his shoulder, and I was micro sleeping, which is when you sleep and then you enter REM sleep, but only for a few seconds. So you actually dream, but only for a few seconds, and you like that, and then you. So even if you're walking, no matter what you're doing, you fall asleep. It's very fucking weird. It sounds. I was telling this to a friend he said it was just like daydreaming, but it's hard to describe the difference. I think the difference is just very involuntary.
Yeah.
When you're daydreaming, you, at least if you're locked in, you're not gonna fucking fall asleep, right? This is no matter what you're doing, you just start falling asleep. It was very weird. And the entire hike down, which was another 5 hours, 5 or 6 hours or something, was me falling asleep and I was really struggling. It was crazy. So this whole experience was, I mean, yeah, it was an insane
So
experience.
was it a flash? You made it to the top and then suddenly you blink maybe 100 times and then you're at the bottom, or
No, I mean, it's.
did you feel every
no,
minute?
No, I feel every. I mean, you're not. I'm not asleep.
Yeah.
I'm just this kind of thing, right? Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It was crazy. They were really really wanting me to get down as fast as possible. The guide was, we need to run, because he was like, you're gonna. The guide was literally like, you're gonna pass out, and apparently that's not. It's both not good for your brain to pass out at high altitudes, and also understandably it's much harder for them and much more dangerous to them to take me down as a limp body.
Yeah.
So they were really like you cannot, we do not want you to pass out. You cannot fall asleep isn't the right word, but you cannot fall asleep. You know, and so we were like running down this mountain on the way down. It was crazy, and it wasn't until I slept. I think I remember I slept for 15 hours, something crazy. They have a full
On the campsite, or what do you mean?
on the campsite.
Yeah.
They actually had a full meal, celebration, everything. I missed that because I was fully, and I mean, that is where difference is in the fact that I didn't prepare, come out. The other people did not get so hypoxic, right? But on the other hand, to people who hear that and think, oh wow, that's what you get for not preparing. But I'm so glad I didn't wait to go, and I didn't say, oh my god, I don't have time to prepare, so I can't go. I made it, and that's all that matters. I made it. I had that experience. In fact, I actually would say this: if it was any easier, I think I would have gotten less out of it. If I prepared more, the fact that I made it, and man, it was so truly, I've never had to push myself so hard. I mean, honestly, never. And I think if I wouldn't have any other way, because if I trained more, maybe it would have been easier. Maybe I wouldn't have learned about my limits so much. I wouldn't have realized that I can push myself so hard. So I'm very grateful for how I went. And I think I've said this to you. I think this is something that everyone should do. I think you should have. There's actually a Japanese term for it that you mentioned.
Yes, Misogi.
Misogi. I think do something hard, truly hard, like this, once a year, something like that. I think it really changes who you are as a person, and it opens up your life and just the breadth of what you can experience so much.
Very very true to your word what you told the hikers at the beginning of having a very strong
I told him, I was like, well, I feel like I'm in generally good shape and I have strong willpower, so I got this. I'm glad I'm glad it was that hard, honestly, because I wouldn't have been able to prove to myself that I could do something that hard any other way, I think.
How do you think you're gonna discover the next hard thing from here?
That's a great question. It's something I've been thinking a lot. When I ask a lot of people, they're like, "Oh, you should climb this mountain." I'm like, "But that's not the idea, right? The point, I've already done that. The idea is don't go and climb a harder mountain. The idea is I want to find some different category, right?"
Do you think it would always be physical, by the way?
Oh, of course not. Of course not. There's nothing special in my mind that's physical over something else. Some ideas of things, like I mentioned these, I believe strongly in the idea of what's the Japanese term for that we talked about earlier?
Oh, Misogi?
Misogi, yes. I really believe in that principle that you should push yourself to do something really hard or adventurous or something out of your comfort zone. And I don't think it has to be I think the general idea just has to be outside of your comfort zone, right? So to me, I think before Kilimanjaro, I did free diving, and that was a really crazy experience. And that was what I would say was before. And I think something after I see, I really want to get my skydiving license. See, it's a different thing, and they all should take different forms. It's not like I'm going and doing this one feat. It's obviously over time you have to do about 25 jumps to your license. But I think that'd be something that could really unlock a lot and add a lot of my life, and And yeah, I think it'd be something out of my comfort zone. I've gone tandem before, but obviously like I definitely the idea of going alone, bro. It sounds scary, but in a way where like I've researched that there's very low risk, and so I know that the fear is in my head, and that's something I want to get over.
Have you found anyone else in your life that like shares the same, I guess, philosophy?
Well, everyone has different philosophies, right? So I think like I found people with significant overlap. So I'll say I guess two things. So first of all, the philosophy of comfort zone. I think my roommate Jay shares that a lot. Um, yeah, I think that when we go on trips, he's the same way. Where he's like, what's the craziest thing we can do? You know, how do we chase adrenaline, things like that. And I think I really admire that. Um, I think we share that philosophy a lot. He also really believes in chasing stories. Um, I also think, that I mentioned a friend that went to Japan. Um, she really believes in chasing stories. Um, and I also believe, my girlfriend, I think that's another thing. I think a lot of people in my life, they share this idea of chasing stories and, and just doing interesting things. Um, and yeah, I don't know. I think everyone has a different take on it. Um, but I think that's what's cool. Like you kind of, like for instance, with Jay, I would go to, um, more of something like I think like more extreme. Like we went cliff diving in Mexico or something like that. Um, with my friend, I went to Japan. We do more like cultural things. I feel like she's very interested in meeting new people that are different from us, even though she's less of an adrenaline junkie. So I think for everyone it's different, and I think that's one of the cool things about life is I can go with different people and experience different things.
What do you think? I'm sure you have a ton of stories on this. Do you have like that one kind of experience that like solidified that idea for you? It's like, oh, this is why I should do it because this event happened. The idea that like I'm so glad I took this risk because I had nothing to lose and I wasn't going to die type of.
Well, okay, so I don't think this idea came out of one thing, but I'll say this: when I was little, I was scared of everything. I mean, much more than the average kid. I didn't like roller coasters; I thought they were too scary. I didn't so much. I feel like had social anxiety and all these things. Um, and it wasn't until I started getting to things where when I did something I was afraid of, I felt like, wow, I unlocked this whole thing that I wasn't able to do before. An example is roller coasters. I actually remember this very well. I was in fifth grade. I was like 12 or 11 or something, right? And the first time I went on I finally pushed myself to do roller coasters, and I was like, dude, this is such a cool thing. Like I was afraid for no reason. And then I was like, okay, what other things are like this? And I think I had conviction that I realized after doing a couple of these things that I'm like, I think every time I've done something like this, push myself out of my comfort zone, I've realized that you actually get a lot out of it. And any temporary, maybe fear coming up to it is abated by the joy of overcoming that fear. And so that reason I kind of very quickly throughout middle school went on a kind of journey to, okay, I'm this super scared kid, more than the average person. How do I change that? So everything I was afraid of, I tried to do, and I pushed myself. And I think that I've got so much of life, and I think I still do that today. I still don't think I'm perfect. I still am sometimes irrationally fearful, and I try to push myself that if I notice that, do the thing. And I think that's kind of where it came from.
Do you think that was something you confronted by yourself? Because I had the same issue, right? Back in fifth grade, I remember me and my older sister, we would go to the amusement park.
Yeah.
And I was scared of the fastest roller coasters, but I remember she would threaten me. She's like, "Oh, if you don't go on this,
That's
like,
so funny.
I'm gonna tell I'm gonna tell
Yeah.
mom and dad, you pussied out."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't do the fine. Okay, I'll go."
Yeah.
And it's like that mentality that someone else is next to you that wants to do something and you don't want to hold them back.
Yeah.
Is that something that you think benefited you, or was this more something you need to learn inherently by yourself?
I think it's actually important to do both. Um, Going with other people is a really great way to push yourself to do things outside your comfort zone, especially because you don't realize it, but just naturally living life, you choose the paths that you are used to choosing. And I think I've realized that when you solo travel, you actually have to be more mindful to try to do things outside of your comfort zone because you'll so automatically be like, this thing looks cool, and the things that you think look cool are familiar and all these things, right? What was I going to say? I would say when it first started out, I would actually say the very first thing that started out was probably with my mom. The roller coasters thing I mentioned. I think she never pushed me to do it, or she did push me to do it. She never forced me to do it. She just kind of was like, hey, we don't have to do it now, but you should just watch them. And oh, the next time, what do you did it now? And then, I don't know. So the first thing when I first started overcoming fears, I was really slow. And I think just, it's also a muscle. The more you overcome fear, the more you're looking to overcome fear. And also I feel I trained myself at this point that I feel like I get dopamine out of overcoming fear, because I just realized how much it pays off. Every single time I overcome a fear, it's paid off so much in life. And so I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I would say that honestly, for anyone who is trying to do this, I think it's actually very important that you do not just one of those two things, because you need to have that muscle and ability to do it yourself, but also it's so much easier to do it with other people, and you can take advantage of that as well.
I find it interesting that you brought up solo traveling there.
Yeah.
Why would do you prefer traveling solo as opposed to with other people?
Yeah, I wouldn't even say I prefer it. I think they're different things, and I think they both have their place. I think that when you travel to another country, I think you want to be as adventurous and spontaneous as possible. And solo traveling is one way to really feel like if you do it properly, to really feel like you're in the culture, experiencing them as a inhabitant. If you do it the right way, at least. Okay, as an example, when I went to solo travel to China, right? I stayed with a family. I stayed with a family there, and we would do things like we would get dinner. The host's wife would cook us dinner, and I'd eat with the host family and all these things. And if I was going with a big group, I can totally imagine that it's like the hosts kind of feel like the guests, because you're it's like everyone's there with you. It's not, yes, partially, but also just if you're with 5 other people, you are surrounded so much by your culture, right? And the host maybe is trying to learn your culture, all these things, but when you're one person, you're really surrounded by them. And for that reason, I don't think you actually have to solo travel to do this. I think if you travel with one other person, for instance, I think that's also okay, as long as they're the right type of person and really aligned with your goals in this. And I've had experiences like that too. But I think that when you travel with a group, I enjoy traveling with a group. It's just a different purpose. At that point, whether you want to or not, you end up being on the trip with the group and not with the people you meet. And so I think that's
that you grew, not
yeah.
the people that you meet.
I mentioned to you that like one of the most amazing trips I've ever taken was to Japan, and I went with just one other friend, and that was so great because no matter where we went, we could just we would oftentimes go up to random groups and be like, start talking to people. And I started a conversation with Google Translate, and maybe an hour in, they would just be like, come with us to the other bar, or I would be like, what are you guys doing tonight? Can we join? And if I had a big group, I think I definitely cannot do that. I cannot spontaneously go into people and, what are you doing? Can we join you? Yeah.
I remember I was trying to plan a trip with you, winter break. Unfortunately, it fell through. Yeah. But one of the things that you brought up was you didn't want to go to some place that felt like America. You wanted something non-European, I think was the way you said it, right? And it got me thinking, as you were talking about your story right there, why a lot of people probably enjoy traveling or they want to travel.
Yeah.
It's like this feeling of novelty, right? And on this topic of what I want to kind of talk with you about today, I think you view a lot of learning a lot of things in the world with novelty. Everything in the world is very novel to you. Do you think that's one aspect of why you enjoy traveling so much, or kind of why that's a strong part of your identity?
Well, so yeah, I mean, I think actually, in fact, we should get more into this later, but I think I'll answer like this. I think my core philosophy of life is impact times experience, and I've thought so much about what this means, and I've rewritten kind of subtleties of it over the years, but I've had this equation in my head for so many years. The impact we kind of touched upon. Tiny for me is an example of maximizing the impact that you can on other people. Traveling is a way to really maximize your experiences. To me, maximizing experiences means maximizing the breadth and depth of things that you experience in life and the memorability of each moment of time. And I think there's just no better way to do that than traveling. And I think that manifests itself in a few different ways. It doesn't have to be you're engaging in the local culture. You can also travel with a group and have a great time. But what was I going to say? But I think at the end of the day, it maximizes the memorability, because everything you do, even if it's as simple as going to a cafe, then even that, it's novel because there's some different thing, you remember it very well, right? And I think I mean, hell, this is even going deeper, but when you talk to people who are older and you hear these people that say something, the last 20 years, it feels like every day is the same day, right?
That's what I was trying
And
to
I'm
say.
like, dude, like,
pause.
I so want to avoid that. Because, I mean, and it's easy to get into. It's easy to have this week be the same as last week. And then you look back a month later, like, what did I do between those 2 weeks? I want as much as possible every week to be distinguishable from each other because I did something crazy like that week or something cool, or it doesn't have to be crazy. It just has to be something memorable, right? I don't even think, I actually think that, you mentioned I'm maximizing novelty. I don't think I'm maximizing novelty. I think I'm maximizing memorability, which I do think is different because there are experiences that are memorable that aren't novel, but obviously they're very aligned. I think those are very coordinated things, but yeah.
I think a lot of people enjoy traveling so much because they live a life of a lot of mundaneness, and physically putting yourself in a different location is the only way to kind of break that forcibly without actually putting on a mindset of I have to take more risks. You just naturally take more risks when you're in a different world, right? Because you just don't know. You're almost a kid again.
I think taking risks is, first of all, I do think that's a benefit, but I think the core of it is just all the branches that you can traverse and things that you can do are such a different set of branches, right? First of all, I mentioned the example of you can go to a cafe and all that, and even that's better, or at least more memorable. Obviously, but when I'm traveling, I try not to go to a cafe, right? I try to do whatever like the most different thing. I think there's two different ways I think about what I want to spend my day with today if I'm traveling. There's first of all, doing something memorable. Maybe I'm going to some experience, something that I cannot do back here in SF, or maybe it's connecting with the culture that is there. Like an example is like I spent one of the days I was in China. I went to a Chinese mall with my host family. I would say the mall wasn't actually that different from the U.S. Obviously, there were some differences, but definitely was not the most different thing or new thing I could do that day. But it was very cool because I got to connect with the host family a lot and learn a lot about the culture, talk to them so much. And so that was more about that, and that was very memorable to me.
What I find interesting is you approach that as that being the reward. And this kind of goes back to what we were talking about, EV situations, but I want to pick your brain on this thought I have, where I wonder if people approach these experiences or taking more risks as a way of they want something out of it. They want more stories. Everyone loves talking about that. Oh, I want to travel so I can become a more interesting person. I could do this, I could do that, instead of really being present and experiencing what it is that's in front of them. Do you think that's a reasonable take? Or
I think I'll push back on some of that. So I don't think you should travel to become a more interesting person, but I think traveling to create stories, I don't think about it. I don't think I think about like the end result is I have a story, I've achieved, I have this thing. Wow. It's like, I don't know, cash I made or something. But I actually think that if you chase stories, I actually really believe in that philosophy because it aligns with so much about making the most of life. I know. I also, something that I've always found very, very important to me is not living a mundane life or a life that can be lived by your average person. And I think chasing stories is really fulfilling because it really aligns with that. I don't know. I also think chasing stories is aligned with making things memorable, so many things. So I actually think that I'll push back on that part because I think that is something I have to do.
Tell me more about why you, how this developed. We talked about taking more risks and the feeling of being alive, or how you felt alive after you start realizing that. Yeah. But to the extent to which you do so, how do you think that developed? Because most people don't have that conviction, right?
Yeah.
Most people, it's just like, oh yeah, I'll maybe tell that girl that they're cute if I see them on the street, but that's the extent of it. They don't actively try to live life every day in a novel way.
Yeah. First of all, I believe in just maximizing life, full stop. And every axis I chase, I want to maximize it. And that's why that's obviously not something just about traveling experiences. This is something about everything. And think about the things that we as humans aspire to do. The person you hear on the news that climbed Mount Everest, or the person we hear that, I don't know, walked across America on foot, all these random things, right? And when I look at those things, I'm like, well, let's do that. Because I think one of the differences between me and all these people is they hear that and they think that's crazy. But to me, I'm like, dude, that's such a cool thing. We should use it as an inspiration. Why can we not be there's nothing stopping us from doing those things ourselves, especially if you aspire, especially if you admire those people for doing that. Why would you not do it yourself? Become the person that you would want to admire. I mean, that's how I see it. I think it just, yeah, I mean, I don't know if that answers your question, but I at the end of the day, I just think it all ties into just being the person that the people I look up to or whatever I want to be. I believe in extremely die-hardly chasing that.
How do you perceive difficulty? I think that's a really interesting topic. I want to talk to you about because you do a lot of difficult things, and similar to what you said, I think it reminds me of that one quote that goes somewhere along the lines of you shouldn't idolize the people you see online, or your heroes are fake, because everyone at the end of the day is a human, and they got to the point where they are today by doing something very simple every day, right? So I don't know if that's the way you think about difficulty, or how do you feel intimidated about the
I mean, a couple different things. First of all, if something's simple and it's cool, I admire someone for doing that. It doesn't have to be difficult to be admirable. I really don't think. I mean, yeah. In fact, I often think that the people who found that thing that is simple and creative are even sometimes more admirable because they were able to be different and think and beyond the outside the box, right? But yeah, what was I going to say? I mean, how I think about difficulty. I've discovered time and time again in life that a lot of things people say are difficult are not that difficult. So I can use a couple of different examples. Mount Kilimanjaro, right? As you know, I went over the summer. I've been thinking for a while, okay, I have this bucket list of things, and one of the biggest things in it was climb a mountain. I really want to achieve this thing, and I think it just seems to represent so much of something that will align with who I am. So I literally went online and I was like, okay, what is the hardest mountain that I can climb without, I'm too busy right now to go on to train, to do, be a proper mountaineer and have to do climbing courses and all these things, right? So what's the hardest mountain I can start out with? And Mount Kilimanjaro was very easily like that decision. And so I think I told you this. I actually didn't train for Mount Kilimanjaro at all. And people, when people hear me say this, people doubt that's true. I actually did not train at all. And when I went on this trip, it was crazy because the opening conversation of course, I had a group that you climb with, you join shepherds. Unless you're really, really experienced, you have to have shepherds that are native to the mountain to take you up. Anyway, so I went to this group, and the first conversations are like, so how did you train, And bro, man, the people on my group were the most in shape people I've ever met in my life. There's some guys, well, I actually just came back from a 30-day excursion where we hiked 400 miles through the Amazon jungle, and he showed me pictures of them carrying their tent on their back, and every night going out, and they even showed how they would find food in the forest, and I'm like, bro, that's crazy. Also, this guy is 63, for context. He did all that at 63. That's crazy. And anyway, this other girl, she had just climbed 2 mountains in Nepal that month, and I'm like, dude, wow. So everybody had these stories like that, and of course, they would be like, for me, I'd be like, yeah, I'm generally in shape, I think. I think I have a lot of willpower. And I'm not gonna lie, people would be like, okay, what? and was it harder for me than those people? I mean, look, Kilimanjaro was crazy hard, like crazy difficult, and I definitely had a harder time than people who were properly trained. But I just, at the end of the day, I was just like, I think I can just go and do this thing. And bro, so many things, okay, you can just go and do the thing. Another example I use a lot is building. As you know, I have to build products, to just be a builder in general. And when I first changed into computer science, I actually learned pretty late, got into the world of coding and all these things. To me, I got into coding to build things, right? I changed my major and I was like, I want to build. I don't care about getting a job in big tech or whatever. I just want to build things. So the first thing I do when I start getting in this world is I'm like, okay, I want to build this app idea, right? Anyway, fast forward, I spent a couple of weeks really grinding, and I realized, right, in the computer science community at Berkeley, people really look up to builders. And it's funny because most of the people in computer science major don't build. And so, you would think, from an outside perspective, people think of it as this very hard thing. But dude, I just started a project, and I'm like, well, when I end up with a barrier, mind you, this is before vibe coding, or even this is before even tab completion, okay? After a couple weeks only, I would go to the people that I knew were builders, and I'd be like, how do you solve this problem? And these would be pretty common problems that I can definitely guarantee you would come across. And they wouldn't know.
So you were just testing them?
Well, I mean, I've been trying to test them. I would just be like, hey, I believe if you're learning something, you should ask people who know the thing, right? And so I'd ask the people, and I realized really quickly, I'm like, wait, after only a couple of weeks, or 2 to 3 weeks, in some axes, I know more than the people who everyone looks up to as builders. And of course and I kept on grinding in it. And I think people say, how'd you learn so much? And oh my God, it seems so hard. I don't know where to start. Honestly, getting into it, I was surprised how easy it was. I was surprised that the level of builders that I looked up to just shortly before, I had already been their peers only after a couple of weeks of really grinding. So I think that there's this perception things are always seem more difficult from the outside. And like you mentioned, like, oh, so maybe you shouldn't look up to your
heroes are
your
full
heroes.
of shit. Is
Yeah,
like
yeah.
What,
But I
was the
actually,
phrase
first of all, I
used
actually
by.
disagree with that idea. I think now if your hero is saying my thing I'm doing is really hard, don't do it, then fuck them. Then they're full of shit. But I like my heroes are people who like they do things that I think that like maybe it's not even that hard, but like they just go and do them. Like I think what matters is you did the thing. Whether it doesn't matter how hard it is, you go and do the thing. And especially I admire people who they go and do the thing and they help other people and they tell them to say, hey, this isn't hard. Let me help you learn all these things. I don't think the fact that I don't know, like the fact that like I did Kilimanjaro without training or something like that. I don't think like making it. I don't think because it's more what's the word? Not achievable, but more reachable makes it less cool. I think you just got to go do it.
Tell me more about what you said about like why, like what does building mean to you?
To me, just like when I have an idea, I make it reality. And I think I say that so abstractly because I don't think building just means writing code. I think it can mean making art, making music, making hardware. I think that, I don't know, I just really building. And actually, before I was into coding and computer science, I was a mechanical engineer and I was building things on that front. And now it'd be a lot more hardware stuff, of course. I switched to software because I thought that it was an easier way to make my ideas come to reality. But I guess that's what I define building as. Yeah.
Why I love podcasts so much is because I run into a lot of people who feel they talk with a lot of certainty, you know? A lot of people I meet, there's a word that I learned recently. I think this is very derogatory, but there's some people in this life that are very casual about things, right? You often hear "I don't know" being said a lot. Oh, I don't know about this. I don't know about that. But what I like about the people I interview, and especially you, is I ask you a question, you're able to theorize on the spot, or actually, there's this really cool story, and this is how the development of this happened. How do you retain things? Because some people are better than others, but I also know someone who retains things by literally having this tool where you highlight articles, you shove it into Anki cards, and you review Anki cards every single day.
That's cool.
Right?
And when you think about retention, you're saying memory retention.
Basically, yeah, because you have a lot of I don't know if low-level concepts is like the right way to say it.
Sure, yeah, I understand. I mean, in terms of the stuff we're talking about, I think the biggest thing is just thinking about things a lot. If something's impactful to me, I spend a lot of time thinking about what it means, what are the impacts, and I think the way that I talk to myself and kind of have that, I end up with not just, okay, it's that memory, if you will, is not just that experience. It's so many things tied to that, right? And the way I'm able to say, maybe answer a question on the spot is not because I've done that question before. It's because I've kind of laid a groundwork of, I know the direction, right? So I can just improvise on top of that direction. Yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but
That's a great way of thinking about it.
I actually think I'm, for instance, I think I'm actually very poor at retention. I think I have a very bad memory for things in general.
Interesting.
But when it comes to maybe stories or thinking about myself, I just think of a lot of opinions that I constantly think about, and I constantly try to reevaluate. And for that reason, I'm very in tune with what my opinion is right now.
Realize the benefit really of being a researcher until recently. It's like I think being a researcher
What
is
is being a researcher to mean to you?
to me it's like developing your own thesis out of like a problem or a subject that you're really interested in, and then exploring that topic with so much what's a different way of seeing research, with so much curiosity that you develop a whole line of sources and evidence towards whatever you're trying to prove. And I think that is why I fell in love with Founders Podcast so much, because it's like it's not.
Sounds like I gotta check out this podcast.
You
man.
have
It's actually
to.
it's very in line with the
yapping
things
about
that I
this
listen-
podcast to my
I
friends
was like,
so
this
much.
sounds very in line with the kind of stuff that I listen to.
Because there's so much aphorisms or axioms. I think that's a better way of saying it. That it's not you haven't heard them before. I'll give you one right now from Todd Graves. There's one that's you don't work your entire life to not do the one thing that you love to do, right? And that's basically saying do what you love to do, right? You inherently know the concept of the idea, but it's backed by this long history of data that he's explaining to you on the podcast. And that's what makes it so convincing, right? So that's why I think being a researcher and being able to prove your points and know where this idea is coming from is an incredible skill in communication that is overlooked.
That makes. I mean, I completely agree. I feel like what the process you're describing is not even just. It just goes down to chasing rabbit holes, which is really how I believe in consuming information.
Were you the guy who would go on a Wikipedia article for 2 hours and just go line by line,
But I feel
putting them up?
I mean, dude, I feel like I also have ADHD. I have ADHD, and I actually think this also. I feel like this is part of the reason why I really absorb information. Is I just will become obsessed with something like this. I know it's absolutely deep dive, and then I'll just find something else and I'll deep dive that. I mean, I'm trying to think of an example. A good example is, so at the last place I worked, I think I told you about this. I started something called Rabbit Hole Lectures, all right? So basically I told you this, all the new grads, once a week, we would get lunch and 2 people would present and they'd give a lecture. So there's about 5 of us, five new grads. So we 2 of us would present every time. And it was so cool because, first of all, I got to really go down some rabbit holes and present some rabbit holes I already gone down. But also I got to learn other ones. And I feel like this was a love letter to rabbit holes and deep diving on these things. Because I don't know, it was very cool. I think it encouraged me to deep dive on things, and I encouraged me to. I got into so many of the things that they would talk about, and I'm like got into myself of doing so much research, and also of course it incentivized me to do that in preparation for the lectures. I don't know, it was very cool.
That's why I think that I the part of you where you're saying I need to build more communities. I need to build.
Yeah,
more
I think it's a
people.
problem I care a lot about. Like I said, I think I've found that connecting people is just really one of the highest impact things you can do, and so anything within that space, I feel like I find a lot of joy out of.
Or you built a club at Berkeley, didn't you?
Yeah, Tiny Dorm. I was gonna say we actually recently got. I told you this, but we actually recently got a cease and desist from Tiny Desk. Sadly, so we had to change our name. So now it's Concerts Under Berkeley. You can check them on Instagram for any listeners.
Tiny Desk?
What is it? Tiny Desk.
What's
Tiny
that?
Desk is so it's NPR Tiny Desk. They basically have a thing where they hold these big artists. They invite them on, and they have these really intimate recording sessions or concerts. You might have 30 people in a cozy. They do them in libraries, actually, a lot of them, or cafes. And the original vision of Tiny Dorm was, hey, we want to bring something that's more of an intimate experience. You had Superb that was hosting these giant concerts on the Glade. And we're like, there's so many people that want to perform, and not all of them want to do that kind of thing. I think it's more about, connecting with the artist, connecting with the music. And you can only do that sometimes when you have more of an intimate experience. So it was about catering that. So that experience. So it first started as, like I said, kind of similar to NPR Tiny Desk. We want to host small, cozy, intimate concerts. But it ended up growing to so much more because we ended up with this amazing musical community at Berkeley. We host all kinds of events. It was a really important and amazing thing that part of my time at Berkeley.
What was your what were kind of those core memories that you made from bringing people together?
I think there's a couple different directions I can take this on. For one thing, I'll say the impact that you make on people, I think, by creating community is so vast and so deep. One of the members of our exec, I remember talking to her, and she said that she was actually going to leave Berkeley because she felt she didn't fit in and it wasn't a place for her. And after finding Tiny Dorm, she canceled her transfer because she actually found a place with people. And I was like, and I mean, I'm a good friend of hers, so I'm so happy she shared that, and it was I'm so rewarded to hear that. And the thing we built actually made a difference in people's lives. And there's been so many dozens, probably over 100 people that have really been active in Tiny Dorm and really invested in the community that I'd like to think have really had similar experiences in terms of the depth of impact on them. And I think that conversation was one that really, made me think, wow, I'm so happy we created that thing.
For me, I was very sad that I discovered the power of community later on in my life. I think I was so individual, or I thought of myself more individualistic. It was like, oh, if you just do work or really good work, you'll just naturally fall into line with a lot of people. And I'm wondering, what was the kind of development for you? I know we talked about how you realized community was super important, but I think talking for myself, building a community seems so intimidating, inviting everyone out and hoping that everyone shows up. What was kind of the progression from community building for you?
So I guess I'll take a couple of different things. First of all, I completely agree. I've actually always, I think I've been into community building from a young age because even in high school, I generally to be the one that bring people together, host parties, host anything. And I think Tiny Dorm was very similar in the sense of we just need to bring people together. But I will say this: I think the very first thing that we did, and I'm very grateful for this, was bring on the right people. So we had to call out. For context, I founded this with two other of my roommates, amazing people. And the first thing we did, we put out a call to bring on people for marketing because that wasn't really our expertise. And we brought on two people who are absolutely amazing at marketing. And I think that we kind of divided up tasks. Everyone did what they're really good at. Someone was really into graphic design, and man, she did the most amazing, beautiful posters. Someone really knew how to run social media. I was more on the artist side. I think where I really shine is in person-to-person interactions. And so I would just pull up to songwriting at Berkeley, which was a club I was already a part of, and a bunch of these other groups.
So there were a few communities on
Yeah.
campus.
So yeah, exactly. There was a few different communities, but I think Tiny Dorm really gave a lot. There was really an opportunity because first of all, there weren't a lot of opportunities to perform. Songwriting at Berkeley is a great place to meet artists and write songs, but not a lot of performance opportunities. And there were other groups that were similar that kind of occupied different niches. But I would go to these groups. I'd even go to music classes, and I'd be like, "Hey guys, I just want to make an announcement. We're doing this thing. You guys should come." And man, we actually put a lot of effort into our first concert. That was one of the things I think we did really right. It was our very first event. We spent like 2 full months doing this one event. That is nowhere now that we have the systems running, and towards the end of my college career, we were doing events once a week often, cranking them out. But yeah, we got a ton of people to attend. We got really cool artists. And I think that first of all showed everyone that, hey, this club has a lot of potential, very first event. And second of all, it showed us that, hey, we're actually solving a real problem that people care about. And people want to show up and participate.
Have you read a book called Tuesdays with Maury?
I have not.
Tell
me about it.
I mean, it's a TLDR of it is there's a relationship between a college professor and a student. The student grows up and kind of lives this life where he's chasing money or making sure that he has a stable life. He soon gets word that his professor has the same disease that Stephen Hawking has, and so he's slowly decaying. And the student remembers the classes with this professor. He was a philosophy professor. And so they kind of reunite despite not really being in contact for a long time.
Yeah.
And it's like these letters or almost this documentation of like the professor spitting wisdom as he's realizing, as he's confronting death.
Wow.
And one of the things he says is Maury, which is the dying professor, was richer than all of us because he had people coming in wanting to spend time with him by his deathbed. And that is something that most of us don't experience in this life because we end up pursuing the life where it's much more lonelier. We sit down with one spouse, we stop making friends, we build up this ego instead of what you said, building a community, building an impact, providing value. And Maury was providing value to so many people by telling them about his experience of confronting death. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I completely agree with the part you touched on. I think most of us don't spend that time of our life really pursuing building community. I would even take it a step further. I think that our society today is based upon all these guidelines and laws and social principles that I think they do a lot to try to reduce the chance of something going wrong or someone feeling uncomfortable. And in fact, I think one of my hot takes, if you will, is I don't think our social guidelines should be like that at all. I don't think we should be trying to reduce uncomfortability or anything like that. I think that we should be trying to optimize for social connection and community and things like this. And if some people feel uncomfortable or something like that, I actually think that's a necessary evil. And I think it's unfortunate because, there's simple things. So many people feel if they go up to a stranger, they might make them uncomfortable, so they don't do it. And yeah, that's always a chance. You're right. You might make them uncomfortable. I'm not going to say that you won't, but bro, who cares? If you make them uncomfortable, you move on with your life. And if you go up to them and you have a good conversation, then you both feel good. And I think our entire social principles I think if I could rework it, it would be based around this. And I don't know. I think there's so many different ways I could take this, but yeah, I think my hot take is that we should really just optimize for.
Okay, well, tell me more about when
Yeah.
you started to realize this. Why do you think most people don't realize this? Because, in this world where we live in with tech, I think a popular philosophy or popular way that people to think about life in a I'm reframing what you said here.
Yeah.
But they live life poker, right? Everything is about an EV cost or expected value. For people who don't know what that means. It's making the moves that's going to provide the highest utility or benefit or whatever, right? But I've seen how you move through life, and that's definitely not something that you do, and yet you're much more competent than a lot of these people. And it's like, why does this happen? You know?
Okay, I actually think I do use expected value. I actually do think I think about that a lot. But the reason why I think I'm different is, okay, let me give you an example, right? So in the example of, let's say, going up to some random person, this guy has a cool outfit, it seems like someone I want to meet. So I think most people, they make the EV calculation that still looks like this. Okay, going up to them, it could be awkward, it could be bad. So let's say that's 1 point of 10% chance. It's 20% chance of it going wrong, and that's -1 point. And there's a 50% chance of it going right. And most people make that EV calculation. I'm not against making EV calculation, but what I do is I do this. I think if it goes wrong and it's awkward, I think that's -0 points. I don't think that's bad. I don't think in fact, I would argue that I think that's plus points because I still proved bravery. And if it goes well, that's maybe even more points because I proved bravery and I don't know, made friend or whatever I wanted to get out of the interaction. I think the fact that I still do the EV calculation, I think that I just think really hard about what is actually a risk. What does a downside actually look like? To me, I think the only real downsides of your life, if you have a chance of death, if you have a chance of really changing your life in a bad way, maybe, losing a job you care about, something like that, serious injury, even a serious injury. These are all things that are real risks. But getting rejected by someone, creating an awkward situation, none of those are real risks. At the end of the day, I think you're going to end up with more character, and I think you're not actually going to end up worse than you are.
Was there a community that impacted you the most, where that just solidified the idea? I know I keep probing you on you solidified these ideas.
Well, I can
back
tell you,
to what I'm saying.
I actually have
chain.
a very clear direction for how I got into community. I'll tell you. So growing up, I have both my siblings are much older than me, so I kind of grew up as basically an only child, right? And I feel like I just had a lot of time when I would just time to myself, and for that reason, I actually would end up being, okay, let me call my friends. I ended up becoming almost counterintuitively a very social person because I had all this time to myself. So every day I would just be like, okay, well, it's on me to go ahead and call up some friend and what's saying today. And I think because of this, I actually ended up with a lot of friends, being a very social person, and calling up people. And I got very familiar with the idea that hosting something or inviting someone out is such a, I don't know, it's such a big part of me. There's this idea, especially bro, when you're young and you have toxic middle schoolers. People are immature middle schoolers. There's this idea that, you should invite someone out the same amount of time that they invite you, right? In middle school, I feel like this is a popular idea.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Not something sure that people as adults talk about, but I remember as a kid I was very rejecting of that, and I was always like, no, I want to be the person who hosts things. I don't care about that. Yeah, and anyway, I don't know. So I just think I ended up always inviting people, all doing things. And you mentioned, is there a community that really solidified this to me? Absolutely, actually. The friends that I grew up with, my friend group from my hometown, I have been friends with some people in the group, it's kind of grew and grew and grew. I've been friends with some people since first grade. And so the same friends I've had literally since early as I can remember, and kind of really just happened my entire life, has been I meet somebody really, really cool. Okay, you know what? I'm going to invite them to do things with my friends. And they become part of the group. And my entire life has kind of just been meeting more people and then, oh, wow, this person's really cool, and kind of growing that group. And, we still keep in touch. I went back for Christmas and Thanksgiving break, and I saw all of them. We got to hang out. And I think that experience of growing that, if you will, community, I mean, it's a friend group in the way, it's obviously a community. That experience of that has been so rewarding because I got to see some of my friends that would be like, hey, I played a We're Not Really Strangers game with one of my friends, and bro, it was so sweet. She ended up, but long story short, she was very grateful for the fact that I introduced her to all my friends, and she ended up getting along with everyone, being a part of the group, and she talked about how it kind of changed her life. And I think it's something I've always known, is that bringing people together. I mean, I've already said it, but it's the biggest impact you can have on somebody, giving them a place where they feel they belong.
One of the things that I have to remind myself constantly is you can't get so caught up with the numbers, right? So if I were to start a community, I think one of the things that I would suffer from is, are people really interested in this? Is my following as big as these communities? Or similar to this podcast, right? Where I know inherently, because when I stop, I have people who text me, hey, what happened. I really miss this. And it's hard for me sometimes to realize that the impact that you make on one person is so great, or it only takes one person to make all of this worth it, you know? And I think just I don't know if it's how you say it, competitive drive or the monetary thing that you attach to it. It's like you get so caught up with numbers instead of like the real impact you make on one person. So I was trying to tie that into how you were saying, like, or what I was initially trying to say was like, it's crazy how like how much your life could change from one person like giving you a chance or like believing in you, right? And that's like impact they're making on you. And it's not like they were obsessed with how many of those they could do for someone. They were just like, oh, it's you in particular. I think you deserve whatever this is. And tell me more about like the impact that Tiny Dorm has made on you, you know, and how like the community has really helped you in your life. And what was like kind of the payoff for you?
You know, for me, first and foremost, I think the payoff has been, I mentioned it, impact is such an important part of my life. And I think just the feeling of like that I've impacted so many people. We kind of were just talking about like an experience I had with Tiny Dorm, and I think that like one thing that really represented, you know, how much it mattered, and it's what I built, or what we built, was it's actually really funny. It kind of harkens back to the that about the deathbed.
The deathbed.
Of the
Oh,
professor.
oh, wow.
I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
Tuesdays of War.
so the day like me and the two guys I founded it with, we were graduating, and that week, last week of college, right? We had everyone over from execs. So these are all the people that are really made an impact, shaping the club, making it what it is today, and we had them all over to my place, and we ended up pulling this all-nighter, and it was just one of the most amazing nights of college. There were moments where we cried because we were like, this thing was coming to an end. It shaped so much of our lives, not just Tiny Dorm, obviously whole college experience as a whole, but I don't know, there were moments where we embraced, and there was moments, it just feels like something that was very beautiful and very true to the human experience. And I reflect back on a lot of that night, and it feels like that night represented a lot of what we had built, and you know what it meant to us, and it was a good closure for what it meant. We even wrote a song that night actually about our goodbyes, and one of the person who sung in it might release it on Spotify soon actually, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, Tiny Dorm was really an incredible experience. I think that I've talked to you about this, but I was active in two clubs in college, Tiny Dorm and Entrepreneurs of Berkeley, which is how we know each other. And I really liked that dynamic for college because I was surrounded by such different people. In Entrepreneurs of Berkeley, you have so many aspirational, extremely smart, aspirational, interesting people. And in Tiny Dorm, you have so many creative people, you know, all very aspirational, but in such a different way. Really, you know, going all out in their passions, their hobbies. And I really love that I got to spend time and surround myself with both those groups of people. Yeah, I think Tiny Dorm was it was great because we built it at start at the intent of fulfilling this niche I mentioned to you, giving artists a chance to perform, giving intimate concerts. What it ended up being is really just this deep community of all the musicians at Berkeley who had come together, know each other, and I mean, it wasn't just people started requesting that we should just have social events, and we ended up people would just, you know, go to the park and bring their instruments and all these different things, and I don't know. I really was happy to see that it blossomed into such a vibrant community where people weren't just there to go to concerts. People were there to just live life and be with each other. And I don't know. Yeah, it was a very, very, very great experience.
I remember when we were talking, or this is a conversation that we had on a completely different day. But another thing that you mentioned that I think would be, I thought was really cool, was the fact that you said Tiny Dorm was kind of like your legacy. It was like you wanted to leave something on campus. Is that something you realized in retrospect, or something that you always wanted from the beginning?
It is definitely not something that I thought about from the beginning. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I don't think I've never thought about that as a separate thing, right? My thought was, I feel like there isn't a good music community at Berkeley that really fulfills what I'm looking for, and I think a lot of people feel the same way. I want to change that, right? And I was a sophomore when we started the club, so I was just like, let's change that. Let's see how far we can take this, right? And legacy only came to really, when we started thinking about, okay, who's going to take over after us? And there are some things I will say, even when I was in college, I wasn't as active in leadership towards the end. As you can imagine, I want to start, we want to start giving a good transition to people who are younger. And man, we're very, very fortunate that we have people who are extremely passionate about the club that come in after us, and we're, obviously going to take over as leaders of the club. But it was a weird experience. It was, sometimes you have to step back and be like, for the club, it's good for me not to take over this thing, or I need to let people make their own decisions and things like that. And I don't know, I think that was a really good learning experience. Also starting to think about, this is something, a legacy. It really was only towards the beginning I started thinking about, wow, this is a legacy I'm leaving here. It's not just something I built and is going to persist over the time of college. It's actually so amazing and so cool that it can be more than that. In high school, I built a club. Was definitely nowhere near as big of an impact on my life, I think, as Tiny Dorm was. But because of COVID happening the year I left high school, the club disbanded and never got together. And so I didn't get to have that same experience in high school. Now, I go back to Berkeley, I sometimes attend Tiny Dorm events. And it's so cool to see it's just as vibrant. And I mean, it's actually still growing. When I talk to people, especially, new grads and things like that, I'll often meet people when I say I'm into music or they say they're into music. I'm like, they'll often bring up Tiny Dorm as, oh, yeah, in Berkeley I was in this club, and and there's so many people that I didn't even know, because now it's kept on going since I'm not there, and I'm like, that's so amazing. Wow.
What is the logistical nightmares of that you had to face when you're building Tiny Dorm up?
Yeah. Surprisingly, the hardest thing to do with our events is securing the venue. I would think I was very surprised by that, actually. Everywhere you go, I don't know, it's just, especially with the idea that we wanted a small, intimate space. And we also didn't want to charge people too much. We wanted it to be something that people shouldn't think too much of the price. They can just go if they want to. Yeah, we ended up just really struggling to find places. I mean, I can tell you, in the end, we ended up finding, the solution we ended up realizing is that we need to partner with a lot of cafes and bars and things like that. And we've kind of built up those connections. Just some person worked at a cafe in Berkeley, and we started hosting things there. And at this point, I don't think it's something you struggle with as much, because we can repeat those vendors. But yeah, no, that's the hardest part, honestly, which was very surprising, because I thought surely, the connection problem. But this is really just goes to show just how much the problem people want it to be solved. Because I had no trouble finding artists that were interested, to the point where we, for our concerts, we held auditions for our concerts. For our open mics, it's more about focusing on giving people the opportunity to perform, so we don't. But yeah, and people want to see intimate concerts. So I think really we had no problem bringing people in on both those ways. It was just a coordination thing.
Is there a checklist that you would tell someone who wants to build a community around music out there right now?
Well, I think first of all, checklist. I think it's hard to say a checklist. I mean, what are you trying to build? If you're trying to build something Tiny Dorm, we have other chapters that other universities have reached out to us and be like, hey, we really like what you do. We want to build one for our club. And we at one point wrote up a doc of advice. We never really ended up managing any kind of chapters, nothing like that. We just wrote up a doc of advice, that said, here you go, this stuff we've learned. A lot of the stuff that we learned, I mean, I think it was things, be aggressive on social media marketing. Oh my God, we've gotten so much out of that. The fact that honestly, Tiny Dorm has grown and existed on Instagram, it would not be possible. If we didn't use Instagram, it would not be possible.
Is it just clips of the musicians playing, or what does that look like?
First and foremost, we followed everyone we could in the music space, right? And then we end up with, they follow us back. We end up with this list of all the people who are in music at Berkeley. We also would table on Sproul a lot, and get people to follow our Instagram, things like that, especially at the beginning. And what was I going to say? So then when we post an event, it just gets views, because so many people in the music community see it and they share it. So yes, of course we share clips and post that, but I think really it's just been getting people to the events. Almost everyone will be like, I found you guys on Instagram.
Yeah.
So make sure to build out the marketing channel.
Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the things I think I even can't even give credit for building that initially. We brought on really good people for marketing, and really good people for graphic design from the start. And so that was something very helpful.
Tell me your favorite story of the events that you guys hosted.
The events we hosted, let me think here. So many cool ones. I think one thing I can share one event that I thought was really cool. It's also really notable because it wasn't like our other events.
Yeah.
Okay, so we wanted to host a boiler room, right? And it's a little outside of the scope of what we normally do. Most of our concerts, we of course let everyone. We want a variety of musicians, but I think what ends up usually happening is more like an indie. A lot of originals, which will tend to be indie music, bedroom pop, things like this. But we wanted to see, it's about music. Obviously, electronic music is just as welcome. So we wanted to host an event for that because we got a lot of feedback that people wanted an opportunity to perform there. So I'm trying to think. Yeah, I just think that event was very memorable because what happened is we rented out Phi Cap. Dude, I low-key might have that frat. It might have been Pi Cap. I forget which one. I always forget the.
It was a frat house.
It was a frat house. Anyway, we rented a frat house, and what was I gonna say? And yeah, we hosted. We got a lineup of DJs to trade off every 20 minutes. We had 2 floors, so we had different DJ on each floor. It was just really cool. I don't even know if I have a story for you other than it was just such a cool event. I don't know. It was a lot of fun. I manned a bunch of different stations. I was at bartending, and that was a lot of fun. I don't know. It was really cool. I think it was really unique.
It's like if you get tired of one booth, you just go upstairs.
That was great, and also was great. I think, and this was honestly kind of accidental. So, the basement ended up being very packed. It was literally a mosh pit, bro. Energy is always amazing. I think that's one thing I've always loved about Tiny Room events is just energy is always so up there. And then the second floor was people chilling, and it ended up being more of a chill vibe, and people would talk to each other, and it was like almost an accident, but it ended up being so perfect. So that was really cool. Yeah.
Energy, right? I feel the people that are the most energetic in this world are able to be themselves because how secure they are with themselves.
Yeah.
How is your relationship with yourself? And I wanted to ask if you ever did all this self-help stuff that a lot of people do, journaling or really sitting with yourself and what do they say, surrender to your insecurities or whatnot. Because I think that's because I know you move with a lot of energy. You don't really fear a lot of things. And it's like, I think it's easy to label it as, oh, just be out of your comfort zone. But I think it's more of a relationship with yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's more than, I think it's many things, but yeah, I agree. Well, okay, I'll start with this. I think when I was little, I think I did not have a good relationship with myself. I think that I've always been different than people I grew up with or other people. I think, especially when I grew up, I think I was always different kind of the other kids in my school. And I think that I had a bad relationship with myself because I think I would just end up getting picked on, and I was very insecure of those differences. And I feel like I wasn't even, the differences didn't even give me a hard time because of themselves. They gave me a hard time because I didn't have confidence. I tried to cover them up who I was and all these, and it just ended up being a very insecure, unconfident person, right? And it's something that through realizing, okay, I have a strong conviction. If I'm by myself, I'm happier. I feel like I accomplish more and all these things. And I have this conviction that if I just am truly myself, I will end up with the right people that I want to surround myself and all these things. And going back to today, I feel like I've realized that, I think that there's never a reason not to be who you are. In terms of insecurities, the same way I try to chase fixing fear. If it's an irrational fear, then I want to overcome that. If it's an insecurity, I think it's really about just saying, hey, don't let it fester. Tackle it head on. Acknowledge it and be like, what do I think I would need to do to get over this? An example is I was talking to somebody the other day, and they talk about how they feel terrible when they're dumb. When they go into some room and they don't know what's going on, they feel dumb and they kind of get insecure, right? And to me, I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. I think for me, that would mean I need to figure out how to walk into a room where I don't know what I'm doing and how to conquer that. So maybe that looks like I'm going to a bunch of rooms, trying different things. And when I figure out something that works, I realize, hey, just try it a bunch and then I eventually realize I'm not worried about that anymore. So part of it, I think, is just I believe in really unapologetically being yourself, because you just end up attracting the people that you want to spend your time with.
Yeah.
And I think a large source of unhappiness in this world comes from people not being who they want to be. Maybe that's parental pressure. Maybe that's pressure from friends or something like that. Trying to conform you into this person that you're not. And I just think that people as a whole should just truly try to be themselves, and things will come if they are that person. I mean, I don't know. I also will say, I guess I'll say one edge to this is that I don't just think about being myself. I also think about who I want to be. I mentioned I admire people who do great things. So, okay, if I myself am not doing great things right now, then it's about being true to who you want to be, even, I think, more than which is a tricky line, because you have to say, I don't want to think about who my parents want me to be. I don't want to think about who my friends want me to be. I think who I want to be, and focus on that.
I think it takes a great deal of introspection or leaning into that kind of moment when you actually feel alive about being yourself, that you can break through all the years of, I guess, what am I trying to say? All the years of conditioning that you've been through. So the idea is from birth, right? You're taught how to act because of the way that people react when you do an action. And so you, as a result, are kind of a accumulation of that.
Yeah.
Right? And so, yeah, to break away from that is very difficult, but I think I've only recently started to realize the importance of it,
I also think this is another reason why it's very important to capture breadth and depth of experiences in your life. The wider the breadth of things you do in this world, and the wider the breadth of people you surround yourself with, the more you're going to realize, this is who I am, this is not who I am. If you say, keep to the circles of the people that, if you follow what your parents want you to be your whole life, you're not going to know who you are without that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always think that the most valuable thing about ourselves in this world, because it's so vast, everyone has their own lives. It's like, it's your story. When I think about doing social media, you get so obsessed with choosing a niche and trying to conquer some corner of this internet without realizing that you yourself are the niche, And I think that's such a freeing idea that I think I only wish people would understand more. Because the reason why I start this podcast, or the reason why I'm talking with guests such as yourself, is because I was so tired of seeing everyone follow the same safe formula, and I think careers is a great reflection of your character, because it's a great significant portion of your life, right?
Yeah, I completely agree.
No,
Yeah.
that's just my take.
No, but I agree. It's when you do something that you truly want to do, it becomes unique. And that attracts interesting people. You end up, if everyone was pushing to a podcast about, I don't know what, about sports or something, you wouldn't enjoy it. And I don't know, it's the fact that you did this different, and there's a million other podcasts about sports. You did this unique format. I feel like things are so much more cohesive than people realize. There's the natural forces that if you are yourself, will in the long term make things come to fruition such that you will lead a happier life.
With the vast life that you have, do you ever regret going to college? I mean, it seems you are self-taught on a lot of these things, and you're able to follow your curiosity. It generally ends you up in the right place. With everyone saying that, with how information is being so democratized, do you think college is still worth it?
I think if you're purely focused on your career, well, first of all, it depends on what your career you're doing. I mean, if you want to be a doctor, you have to go to college. I mean, let's just put that as a baseline.
Please. I don't want my surgeon to.
Let's put that as a baseline. Med schools are going to change their applications for a long time. So it very much so depends on what you're doing. I'll give my answer from being in the tech industry and being a software engineer. I think most of what I say will transcend to the tech industry as a whole, but yeah. For me as a software engineer, I think that if I wanted to focus fully on my career, there's no question that going to 4 years of college would absolutely not be the best move. But that's also not the point. That's not my goal in life. My goal is not just to be the best software engineer possible. my goal is, I mean, like I said, it's that equation, impact times experience, right? Um, and yes, I think I can make a bigger impact with my career if I skip college, but I'm also missing out on such a formative process in life, such a formative experiences that I cannot get outside of college. Um, we talked about traveling, how when you immerse yourself somewhere, you have all these different paths. College is the same way. It's very different from life as, I guess, an adult or out of college, you say. And you can't get that any other way. You can't get that proximity of people that are your age. I think that's very important. Um, and just also like being able to pursue so much of like what you want, building a club, like all these things that I was able to spend a lot of time with. I know personally, my advice to everyone is that you should do college unless like you have a really good reason for 4 years. But I want to give exceptions to, like, if you can't afford it, obviously, this is if only you can afford it, and also like, I don't know, I do think there are opportunities that are like worth it over college, but I just think the high bar for me at least, bar is extremely high. I ended up doing it 4 years because, and I'm very grateful for that I did that. I think I'd be hard pressed to see like really any opportunity that I think I would have left very early for it, because I just think it was such a important time, not in my career, but an important time of like making me and shaping me to become the person I am.
Tell me about so on the topic of like college, right? Like you're building this club that you're really passionate about when it comes to creative making music, but also at the same time like you are also building a lot of things, developing like software engineering. Um, I hate the word balance. That's not where I want to go with this. I want to ask how you live two lives or how you even combine those things. So back to what we were talking about with some people just combining two outrageously different things. How do you combine those things together?
Yeah, I think you're trying to stray away from work-life balance, which I agree. I also don't like on portraying it like that.
Yeah.
Um, what I think of a lot of people have said to me is, "Oh, you have such a successful career. Oh, but it seems like you also just partied or not partied. I didn't care about partying as much as just I did what I wanted to do in college. I had time to have fun doing clubs, hobbies, taking trips with my friends and all these things." And I think that the truth is, I mean, what are you doing in your downtime, right? For me, a day in college might look like I'm grinding during the day, grinding classes, whatever, and then I'm going to as soon as I'm grinding until I have some event for maybe Entrepreneurs of Berkeley, where we have a ton of fun, do some really cool thing, social thing, I don't know. And I don't know, I just think it has to do with how do you maximize your time, right? If I'm having downtime, okay, I'm not just going to chill in my room, right? I believe really, really on limiting amount of time on doom scrolling or something like that. It's like, I'll put it this way. I believe in attacking every part of that equation with such tenacity, right? You shouldn't just
Impact and experience that equation,
exactly
right?
chasing both sides of the equation with equal tenacity. You should not think of work as the thing that, oh, you're gonna grind and it's gonna be maybe uncomfortable because you have to be heads down. Obviously, at a certain point, there will always be the moment when don't want to work and you don't want to study and you have to do anyway, right? I actually think that same mindset should apply to things outside of work too. If you want to be an adventurous person, there are gonna be times when you're, dang, I'm so tired from working so much, and maybe I don't want to go to this event. Maybe I don't want to go on this trip. But you know what? I'm gonna do it anyway because I'm gonna earn that experience, earn that. And every time I've done that, I've been so grateful because not only do, first of all, I was about to, man, my body really wanted to just lay in bed, and after doing this, shortly in, I'm like, no, this is better. I get energized. So first of all, feeling goes away of not wanting to do anything. But second of all, even if it's really just a hard thing and you struggle through, it's still type 2 fun, right? Where you end up here, I'm proud of myself for still doing something, And I think that when people say, how do you do such work and such life, blah, blah, blah. I think the thing that I don't do, that most people do, is just want downtime. I don't know. I just don't believe in the idea that you need downtime. I think you should energize. I think you can energize yourself by switching. I get burnt out from working, and I energize myself from doing something else that's productive in that equation, right? If I just did one of them, I would definitely be burnt out. When I travel for months on end, the first thing I want to do is, bro, I feel burnt out of traveling. Maybe I want to work, right? And I will do that. I think people have this idea the idea of their downtime or their life outside of work wrong. I don't think it should be now is the time to chill and not try hard or whatever. I think you should try equally on both the sides.
You know what I find interesting? What I find interesting is, okay, so you have variety, right? Variety in life seems to be something important, right? Switching between two things. And then you also you don't see these two things as like working on music and working on programming. It's like, I get to do programming and I get to do music,
Yeah,
right? And it's
I mean,
like,
I don't know.
I'm a little tired of programming right now. Let me do some music, you know?
Yeah, I mean,
I'm a little tired of music.
I want to say I still believe, and well, I think the way you described it does seem to indicate that I don't believe that it's more I believe in working hard for everything you want, not just the traditional career. It's like there are so many times when I want to get this project done. I'm building something, and maybe I'm stuck in a bug. And bro, it's not that I want to code it then. Well, we've all been there. There's some tricky bug, bro. I just want to give up.
Yeah.
But I do believe very strongly, you shouldn't give up. You should press through. What I'm saying that I think how I'm different from other people is that all that I said, it should not just apply to your career. It should apply to your life outside of work. It should apply that, man, I'm really stuck on, I'm afraid of doing this cool thing, skydiving, or I don't know. Like, I feel like I meet a lot of people who are, I want to do skydiving, but I'm too afraid. I'm like, but they're really successful in their career. I'm like, I bet there's a lot of times in your career where you push yourself you didn't want to work, but you push yourself to work because you know it's going to be worth it, because you care about your career, you care about grind. And I'm like, dude, you should do the exact same thing with all other parts of your life. I think that's where I'm different. Yeah.
Can I ask you why do you think you're split between these two? So where I'm trying to go with this is, I'm in love with the idea of people doing one thing and kind of mastering for the entirety of their lives, right? Because it's what brings them the most joy. One of my favorite examples of this is this sushi chef named Jinro. Jinro is this guy who's dedicated probably 40 years to just sushi and making the perfect piece of sushi, or the art of everything about sushi. And it's like, people enjoy that novelty, or he found his life mission, right? His life mission is probably to make best possible sushi. And even then, he might fall short at the end of his life. So I'm wondering we talked about your philosophy of impact and experience.
Yeah. Do you mean why am I split between those two things?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you'll ever find one thing, or if the two things is your one thing. I wonder if that makes sense.
I'll say this. Oftentimes, the best things I think the best things in life are touch on both of these.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when I'm as an example, the thing that got me into entrepreneurship was in high school. I started this nonprofit with my friend, and obviously, it goes without saying that we basically, long story short, we manufactured medical equipment, and obviously made an impact there, and it was very rewarding. But there was also such an experience part. It was such a cool experience to be able to run a business. Effectively run a business, even though it wasn't a for-profit business. It was effectively running a business. And I don't know, I felt when I was doing it very fulfilled on both these fronts. So it's not that when I look for a job, for instance, you might think that based on what I'm saying, I believe that, you should have a job with work-life balance where you maybe don't work that much. I don't believe that. I believe you should have a job that gets you both sides of the equation.
I don't think we've talked about how you came to this principle, right? How did you discover this? It's very hard. I think a lot of people have a principle, or at least have some sense of it, but they can't articulate it, right? Yeah. And they try to take someone else's principle or take some kind of self-help quote and internalize it, but it's not a perfect fit, So I'm trying to understand, where did you get this from?
So I have a good answer to this. So I actually don't believe in reading books like 40 Laws of Power or anything. I know you said you found a lot of value out of one of those books. I forget which one it was. 40 Laws of Power, I think.
I don't think so.
I forget which one.
Maybe How to Win Friends and Influence
That's
People.
What it was. You found a lot. I know that you said that. I don't personally for myself believe in reading books like that. And the reason why is I want all of my principles and philosophy to be very built from first principles. And so let's say, how do I find this equation, right? It's really just from first principles. First principles come from sheer experiences of life. I did this thing, I felt bad about myself. I did this thing, I felt great about myself. Not in a short-term happiness sense, but in a long-term, fulfilling way. And it's looking back, thinking a lot about, okay, what are the kind of things, what does that look like? And so when I wrote down that equation, it was my freshman year of college. And it wasn't like that just like a spark of insight. It was something I think about a long time. I mentioned this to you. Oftentimes when I think about something for a long time, I end up revisiting the same topic a long time. I end up recomputing a lot of where I already came up with because I want to go back to where I was, right? So I use writing as a place to save my spot, so I don't have to recompute that stuff, right? So I was like, okay, I'm had this conversation enough. We need to figure out a way to really write this down. And so I started writing paragraphs about like what's important to me, and even before I really even had tested this so much, I was like, I think two things I really care about are when I had this experience or when I've helped a friend, helped someone, done something like that, right? And I realized that it's very simple. As I wrote this, I realized that there's even things that I really believe in. It's a multiplier, right? It's experiences times impact, meaning, if you chase only one, it will be zero, right? You know what I mean? Infinite, 100, 1,000 times zero is zero. So I don't believe I would be fulfilled chasing only one. It's only fine by either doing both or finding something that fulfills both that I really feel very fulfilled in my life in that moment.
I wanted to iterate what you said. What I found interesting is you discovered it through the things that made you happy. And one of my favorite quotes that I heard last year or beginning of this year, I guess you could say, and I'm kind of using as a good measuring stick, is this quote that goes, most of us aren't trying to find the meaning of life. We're trying to chase the feeling of being alive. Right? Yeah. And so we find the meaning of life through the things that make us feel alive. And I think how you find your guiding principle, how you find how to live your life is through just understanding what makes you really happy. Yeah. And for me, that's been, I have two things: tennis and having conversations with people.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And it's like, I think that's a very great place and organic way of finding your meaning. Yeah. And so being someone who has so many things that you could do with this equation, how do you wake up and say, oh, this is the thing that I want to do today?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question. I think the reason why I say the equation I do is because it actually leaves a lot of room to interpretation. You can experience any different thing, right? And kind of the same way I want to act on the equation in different ways throughout my life. I don't want to just I don't just want to make an impact on people through my job, right? I want to do it through so many different ways. But that's a very valuable way to do it, right? That's one of many, So in terms of how to wake up and do that, I guess I actually don't believe in I should wake up and do this thing. I think every day I kind of think about what's going to maximize, this thing. And I found certain things, there are certain, I would say, maybe unrelated principles that you can apply. When you do something again and again and again, you start to have compound on itself and you can make a really strong impact, right? I found that the longer project I do, if I work on something that takes twice as long as twice as hard, I can make 4 times as much of an impact, right? And you should take advantage of those exponentials. On the other hand, you also want novelty, and breadth is important to discover who you are, and also to know that you're doing the most valuable thing of your time right now, So balancing those, I think, isn't really in the equation. The equation is more of a higher level. Yeah. But balancing those is an ongoing thing I think I'm definitely learning. And I guess maybe what I said is obviously some guiding principles that help to do that. But I think there's a lot more as well.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
The reason why I asked that is because there's a word that I started labeling this podcast with is finding autotelic people. Autotelic. So autotelic means to do something because of the joy you get out of doing the thing. That's awesome. Yeah. And so I think that naturally becomes one thing for a lot of people. It's like, you will definitely see people who are, I just love music. I can't stop thinking about music, and I just play music every day. I wake up, I think about play, and go back to sleep and wake up, dude, all over again. And so I'm just trying to I'm trying to
understand,
rigidly shove that into you. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
when
I don't
you
know.
wake
Like,
up,
I guess the things that we've talked about maybe is the best way I could think of a way to do that. But also part of it is even then I sometimes want to be like, explore other things. I don't know. I really just think, I guess I care a lot about in life, really trying to experience everything and try to interpret life different ways. I don't want to be constrained or limited by one.
I don't think you're control. I think what makes I think the autotelic thing you're chasing is
Oh, yeah.
experience. Experience and then
It's like
impact. Yeah, or
Yeah.
in my head, I'm just gonna say this chance, but I'm not saying this is true for you. But in my head, I'm labeling you as someone who chases experiences more than anything, and then uses that to make impact. Impact is a sub point of experience in my head.
Yeah, I don't think, I think I see them as equal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I see one as a sub point. Yeah.
That's great.
Because I think there's been many times in my life where you could say the opposite. When I am, where I'm really grinding, and I don't think about, I don't know. Yeah, I think there's definitely times when I think it's in reversed. And yeah. Even what I was gonna say is, I know that you're talking about this autotelic thing. Is that what I'm doing? But I think really, I really don't even see myself as autotelic, because I think I want to really expose myself to other cultures and how other people think. And part of that is, even though I know I believe in this equation, I want to at least be able to step into other people's shoes for times in my life and like explore what another life equation might mean for them, or however they might think of it. Because I mean, in fact, I think that a lot of people don't even think, even beyond equations or anything. I want to be able to truly understand someone maybe who is, I don't know, maybe their whole life have been creative and don't think about things so analytically. And I want to be able to step into that too. Even though that's less true to myself, maybe I still want to be able to experience and understand that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think a big realization I just came to right now is, again, I this is why I love bringing these up, because I start to realize how I think about these too.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
You have multiple autotelic. You find a lot of multiple things autotelic to you. I think that's what I was going wrong with. It's
really
not
interesting.
just one thing.
I mentioned earlier that physics is a great way to model other things. So in physics, a lot of times, I can describe the movement of, let's say, a ball or something with a bunch of different laws, right?
Yes.
You can add a bunch of different laws. Or there's some law that actually, all those laws kind of are different forms of this one thing. And so what seems really complicated is actually this very, very simple thing. It just manifests itself in complicated ways. I think you're trying to do that. And that's something I also always follow, right? And I do follow that for life. And I do try to put that into life. But I also think that, what I want to set myself as different is I want to aspire to truly be able to experience other cultures and other things, and which actually requires me, as hard as it is, to not even have that, to not even have some overarching thing that's, this is like, I want to. What I've realized is if I in those moments where I really try to experience something else and I actually get it, it's not, this is another version of the existing model I have. It's completely different model. Maybe you don't even think of it as a model. It's just maybe the idea of it being even a model is something specific to the other version. The best way to understand this one is a completely different thing. And that's impossible to some extent to really understand, but as much as possible I want to do that.
Yeah. Do you have something that you took from your travels?
Well, I mean, I actually think less about traveling when I do this. Although you might think that would be that way, but a good example is probably, I mentioned that I was in Entrepreneurs at Berkeley versus Tiny Dorm. And I think communicating between people when you're surrounded by groups of completely different types. Oh, also, you know what? Actually, even better example is my hometown friends versus my friends here. Uh-huh. When I describe someone from my hometown to them, to hear, they try to say, they're like us, but they're less than this way. And it's just, that's not really accurate. They try to think, okay, these are all the people I know, and they're like, they're like that. It's like, but that's not at all. Yes, at a surface level, they share those traits, but it's like they are completely different reasons. Both have completely different reasons, and the way you're describing it, because it's on it's one frame of reference. I don't know if you know, it's the idea of collapsing and in thousandth dimensional thing into along one dimension, right? And whenever you collapse something, you lose some information, right? This is linear algebra or whatever, but I think depending on the view that you look at it, you always do need to look at some view, it's true, but depending on what view you look at it, you're going to collapse some information, right? And you want to find you want to find the frame of reference that collapses them least, because that's actually how someone who maybe grew up there would look at it. Is oh my god, I forgot the word for it. PCA. You know what PCA is?
No, tell me about it.
Okay, anyway, it's a linear algebra concept where essentially you want to view, let's say, a thousandth dimensional thing in 2 dimensions. Well, you want to find the 2 dimensions where you find the most variance. So you can see the biggest difference, lose the least number of information, and still see it viewable for 2 dimensions, right? So whenever you're doing something, you're basically doing collapsing, and you want to find, ideally, you want to find the PCA perspective where you can actually like view it as natively as possible. And I think that, like, yes, you can always like come from a different culture and describe someone a certain way, but you're gonna end up with like a not a very good model that understands that, because it's gonna be like losing so much information. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah.
No, it makes so my interpretation of that is like instead of this instantaneous moment where like I'm trying to I guess if we were just talking about advice or asking you for advice, like instead of understanding like how you think or like what your message is to the world, now I have context for your entire history or your entire story, and then from there I get to see where that advice comes from. Is kind of how I'm trying to say it back to you. You're saying most people don't get that story, right?
I think that most
they
people,
just take it surface level.
I think most people don't realize that they're collapsing in the wrong dimension.
Oh, okay.
And I'm saying I think that like it's important. Like this is also going back to what you said about how like, oh, you know, autokinetic? Autotelic. Like you view everyone of you wanted to find their autotelic thing, right? Yeah. And maybe even that's a higher level thing. Like that is one version of looking at it, and you can describe something very well that way, but it is one way of collapsing, and you're losing out. Like you don't know if for some people that will be the best way of describe. Like obviously who they are, we can never encapsulate a human brain, a human person, into words. So no matter how you describe someone, you're collapsing some information. You want to do so in a way that's like, right? And when you do it with if you say the autotelic principle, that's going to be a good way to describe some people. But for some people, you have like a different PCA, a different dimension that you want to collapse them on. And so I think that's something I've tried to spend I've at least tried to work on is, both using what I know about people to predict their behavior, but also figuring out how to best describe them, what perspective best describes them, because then you can actually, that's even the higher level of, you really understand first people much higher than even beyond just based on your own experiences, if that makes sense.
No. So first off, I want to say, yeah, this reminds me, that's probably a reason why geopolitics exists, right? Because you have so much nuance that other people discount, and it's like, oh, why can't you just start from a clean slate? It's you don't understand all this other stuff, you know?
You want to understand the best way to describe someone, or whatever, or a culture, or whatever you're trying to describe. So you don't want to use your existing model and then say what things are different, because your existing model is probably from a different perspective. You want to actually see. Now, this is, to be clear, this is impossible to do unless you're like really the person that's studied. But you want to at least try to guess or try to figure out, right, what the other way of looking at it is.
Right.
I think that's where it takes a long time and it's hard to do this, but that's when I've really found, I'm actually, you know how people say they're bilingual? They actually transcend everything, because it gives you an entire different, it's not just use the same thing, describe a different way. It's like an entirely different way of looking at it. That's when you really unlock that, is when you're actually able to look at an entirely different way that is like a different way of collapsing everything that you're looking at. And that takes a lot of time and it's very hard, but that's what you really, I think, I aspire to be when I try to immerse myself in other cultures. I don't think I fulfill it to the fullest extent because it's just so hard unless you're spending a lot of time. Yeah, we can also talk more about Japan. I know I kind of veered away in that because the question you asked, I think, went a different direction.
Yeah. Or I guess the topic of Japan would be what you learned from Japan, right? Like
Yeah.
your experience in Japan.
I mean, Japan was an incredible experience. What I think set Japan apart was my experience in Tokyo was that people were very, very friendly to tourists. So I mentioned I spent a few months in Europe. And in Europe, there's a very strong relation that I can understand, where the more touristy a place is, the more they hate you as a tourist. It's very clear. I mean, it makes sense. And it's a very clear thing. You can go anywhere. You go to a tiny, Greek island. I went to Paros. And man, I befriended so many locals. It was great. You go to Rome or Paris, and they're all, fuck you. Like, fuck you for coming to our city, And so for that reason, even in Europe, I ended up being like, bro, I want to go to the rural areas. And I ended up kind of staying away from the stuff that before the trip I ended up thinking would have been the coolest, which was the touristy spots. Anyway, so coming to this mindset, when I went to Tokyo, I realized this is a very European or maybe Western I don't know if even it's Western. I think maybe it might be a European thing. But yeah, because Tokyo was so not like that. Tokyo was very touristy. And man, just everyone I would meet, everyone would literally end the conversation with, "Oh, by the way, I just wanted to thank you for visiting our country. I just want to say, oh, thank you for being here. I wanted to appreciate you honoring our country by visiting." They would always end this stuff. I'm like, wow. First of all, obviously shows a culture of respect, very much so. But second of all, it just really shows, I was like, that's so amazing. That's so, I don't know, I really fuck with that sentiment, you know? Like, I don't know, I think when people visit SF, I'm like, dude, I'm so happy that you came, you know, today's SF is so cool. I'm proud of the city. I'm really happy that someone chose to take their time, their vacation, to be like, I want to see why SF is so cool, because it is, you know? And I think that's so cool. That's the general sentiment is they're just so happy that Tokyo is someplace that people are proud to visit and things like that. The other thing is, you know, I think I found in Japan, although a lot of the locals were shy, they were very, very excited to talk to foreigners and very excited to talk to tourists. And so, you know, I'm very extroverted and I don't mind being the first person to talk. So I'd go to a lot of people with Google Translate and they would be like, first they would start the conversation with, "I just want to thank you for going up to me. I feel very happy because I was looking and I wanted to talk to you." I would get that. And I'm like, bro, that's so sweet. And bro, that would never happen in America, bro. They're just so sweet. And I don't even think it's that they're more direct. I think it's just the things that they think are direct are different than us. You know, I think in America that'd be a very direct thing to say, but I think in Japan it's not as direct. But anyway,
You should pass the torch to everyone visiting San Francisco.
To
say thank you so much for visiting.
I mean,
Golden
and
Gate.
bro, it was so great. So because of this, I end up pretty much every day or night in Japan. Would end up whether it's someone on the street, someone in a bar. Bro, actually, I'll tell you this story. This is a crazy one. We were at a old Japanese bookstore, super cool, and we had got some really cool Beatles magazines that were in Japanese. These are classic original Beatles magazines, so cool. Anyway, so this news crew comes up to us, and the girl who spoke English was like, "We're interviewing travelers who bought books from this place. Can we interview you?" Of course, we're like, yes. And I've talked to them so long, and then the girl who spoke English, we ended up talking to her. First of all, she spoke English because she went on exchange to Miami for a semester, which is so funny, and she is now a tour group in Japan. So we were like, oh my god, that's so cool. We should go to a bar. So she ended up going us for free, taking us all over the city, taking us really cool music spot, all these different things. So that's like one example of, bro, we literally randomly met our interviewer for the news crew. First of all, so we were on Japanese, this is a national television, by the way. I think I told you this. Crazy fact that we were just randomly on Japanese national television, a full interview. And then our interviewer, well, where else would I just be like, "Hey, by the way, do you want to go out to the bars tonight or something?" And she was like, "Yeah, let's do it." The person who interviewed us on TV. And so we went out, and every night was kind of like this. Obviously, none of them were maybe as crazy about an example meeting people. I would just go up to someone at a bar. I remember there was a group of college kids in Japan that were at some bar, and they're playing some drinking games. So all the drinking games seem to revolve around dice. And anyway, and so I had actually learned the game just the night before or something. But I saw them playing this, and I was like, and I came from my Google Translate, like, "Can I play?" These people really do not speak English there.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
you should really. And they were like, bro, they were so excited. They were so excited for us to play. And it was so cool. It was like 6 of them were like, oh my God. And then the entire night they were trying to teach us Japanese and a video of all us being so drunk and they were trying to explain how you say "I love you," which, very fun fact, the moon is beautiful. You say "I love you" is directly, the way you say "I love you" in Japanese directly translates to "the moon is beautiful," which is kind of interesting. And I forget, I think the reasoning was basically something saying the moon is beautiful.
Quite right, but
I know, I swear to God, I know it sounds crazy. I swear to God. I remember I even thought, I was like, dude, wait, I think this is a translation error. I looked this up. I remember thinking it must be a translation error.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I looked this up and it is true. So it's very cool. Anyway, what was I going to say? I remember them do this video of us being super drunk. 4 other college kids, and we're all shouting this on the street. And we're all saying this. And we're all playing this drinking game. It was so much fun. And we ended up going bar hopping with this random group. And I'm telling you, every night would just be random. Bro, so consistently every night. I went up with some random group. And like, dude, I so want to go back. And I have a bunch of those numbers and contacts. They're all, stay with us when I go back. It was so cool, bro. It was so, I mean, man, I have so many other things that happened. The last thing I was going to say in Japan that was really notable is our last night in Japan. We went to this Indonesian bar. And so this is one thing that's really cool.
Bar?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
This is one thing really cool about the Japanese culture. Their going out scene is really cool. It's like Every bar fits 6 people max. Very different from America. And a lot of these bars, you end up with just, this is this friend group's bar. Like, so we went to this group, and one of the guys spoke English. I think he got his master's in English or something. And so I ended up talking to this guy, really befriending him. And he's like, this is the bar we go to every day after work. It's literally, we go after work every day. We come here. And I was like, first of all, I wish we had that in America. Just like gathering, where on your off time, you just go there and you chill. Maybe not even a drink. And he's like, where are you at? My friend just wanted us to have a place. So the owner of the bar was bartending. He's like, yeah, that's my friend. We were all friends before this. And he was like, let's just open up a bar because we hang out every day after anyway. And I'm like, bro, what? That's so cool. What the hell? So anyway, so this guy ends up being, first of all, we were in the live music district. And then everyone there is super into playing music, which is really cool. So that was one way I really bonded with people. So he took us around from bar to bar, and every bar he would introduce us to the owner, and they'd come out and be like, oh my God, you're from America. This is over Google Translate. Everything's over Google Translate. But he's like, oh my God, that's so cool. We should try this drink. So we get a free drink if we go. I have a video of this one club. He went to this club/bar or whatever. Again, it's Japan. It's a very tiny club. And the owner was DJing, and I was like, can I do it? And he was like, yeah. So I just was DJing for like 20 minutes. And it was so cool. And then the next bar, okay, I remember this is a really funny story. So I guess there's 2 parts of this. So we go in, and there's this bottle with the skull and crossbones on it, okay?
Okay.
And it's like, and anyway, so we're like, me and my friend that I went with, Lydia, she's like, okay, let's get that. And I'm like, absolutely. So we try to order it, and the bartender is like, no. He doesn't speak English. He's like, nope. Can't have it. And the guy who spoke English was trying to explain, and then he was trying to explain, oh, that's only for locals. And we're like, we really want to try that drink. And he's like, no, it's too spicy. You understand. I'm not going to let you have it. And so we spent 5 minutes over Google Translate the bartender thought it was a translation error. It was literally, he was like, they must not understand that this is going to die.
Because you keep pushing it.
Yeah, and I'm like, no. We understand that we're going to die. It's okay. Can you have the drink? That's how we ended up this drink. And it was 90% alcohol. And the other 10% was probably ghost peppers, because it was both burn your throat because of alcohol and also burn your throat because it was so spicy. But it was very cool. I remember as a point, we drank the whole thing because we were like, we got to push ourselves. Not as a point to prove them wrong, just as like, we're going to have this crazy drink, bro. We have to say we've fucking done the whole thing. I mean, hell yeah, right? So we drank the whole drink. We fucking died. And the last part I'll say to this is later on. Okay, first of all, we drank this whole thing, and everybody at the bar, there's 6 people or something, was just watching us drink it. And somebody came up to us and was like, literally was like, wow, you guys are really crazy. Whoa, that's crazy. Brought up Google Translate and just played that for us. It was so funny. So we're like, bro, it's hella main character energy. It was so funny. And later on, we're still chilling at this bar, and I remember there was a ukulele on the wall, and I was like, do you mind if I play? And they're like, yeah. And he's a little unrelated, but the last part of the story I'll say was, I played like a ukulele song, Riptide is, I think.
Yes.
It's a song that clearly knew it, even though I don't think they knew the words in English, and everybody was humming along. It was really, really nice moment. I actually, the bartender got it on video, and he ended up posting it and tagging me on his Instagram, on the bar's account. It was thank you for the 2 Americans that graced our President's Day. And I was like, bro, what? Anyway, it was I'm telling you, every night in Japan was just so wow, incredible. Anyway, yeah, it was an amazing place.
One of the things I talked about with Dylan too was the fact that he said the most people travel pussies.
I agree.
They have this itinerary, and there's honestly, like a very rigid structure.
Yeah.
Tell me about how you plan trips. How you open yourself up.
No, I completely agree. I grew up with having the very traditional family trips, which is like you go to Disney World, you know. I mean, not to knock Disney World. Not to knock Disney World. Disney World can be fun, to be clear. Not to knock it, but you know, yeah. Versus, I mean, I don't know. The thing I just described, that isn't really. That's why I mentioned that having those experiences. You can only be 1 or 2 people to have like the kind of experience I just described. I think at the end of the day, people are just unwilling to put themselves out of their comfort zone, and also unwilling to go up to strangers. I think one big part about my travels is the fact that I try to constantly talk to locals. Ordering at a restaurant, even if it's as simple as my waiter is at a restaurant, and as simple as, instead of looking up, what do I do after this? I ask my waiter, hey, what do you want to do after this? Bro, in Japan, I literally would just be a random person in the street. Hey, we're looking for a good place to eat. What do you recommend? And I would tell, bro, I had one girl walk 2 blocks with us to show her their favorite Japanese curry place. and she walked with us there, and I was like, "Oh, that's so nice." I think that the differentiator is just people are unwilling to really fully participate in the culture. I mean, I think it's either an unwillingness to fully participate in the culture they're in, or an unwillingness to go into to really talk to strangers and fully commit to that, which is obviously essential if you want to fully participate in the culture. And I think that's a large part of it.
Do you ever have a fear that you need to know the language in order to fully connect with them?
I mean, I don't have that fear because I fully know that's not true. I mean, look, obviously, if I knew the language, there's no question it'd be easier. But the sentence you just said, do you need to know the language to fully connect with them? I empirically know that's not true. When I was in Japan, and China for that matter, I had multi-hour conversations with people over Google Translate. And sometimes you have a funny moment where somebody doesn't translate right, and you laugh. And it's great, and it's more bonding. I don't have a fear of that because I know it's true. I know that you don't need that. Obviously, with that said, it's incredibly easier to do it, and I wish I knew the language. That'd be awesome. But yeah, you don't need it.
You mentioned a lot of free diving. What was that experience like? What made that one so hard before Kilimanjaro?
Yeah, so I kind of mentioned before the adventure in my head that I think before Kilimanjaro was one of the coolest things that I pushed myself was I got my freediving certificate, and in order to get your freediving certificate, you have to go down 66 feet down, straight down with one breath.
Wait, what started this obsession for diving?
Well, it's actually so crazy. It's not even an obsession. Same friend that I went to Kilimanjaro with texted me one day and was like, "Hey, do you want to do freediving with me?" And I looked at it and I was like, "Bro, this is so sick." I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know what it was. I was like, I don't even know what freediving is. I read the description, watched some videos. I was like, bro, sounds exactly like something that's outside my comfort zone, something I should chase. Let's do it. And so we ended up going to Hawaii. Went with some other friends as well, and bro, it was crazy. I guess I'll the one thing I'll say, I'll finish off is this, is I was gonna say, so the final day you get your dive, you're going down, and you learn to be more and more efficient about clearing your ears, swimming down, holding your breath. And every time you go down, you start with 5 meters. When you first start, 5 meters, which is 16 feet, feels really hard. And I remember thinking, bro, how do you get to 20 meters? What the hell? 20 meters is 60 feet. How do you get to 20 meters? What the hell? I'm literally running out of air on 5 meters. And yeah, you just sheer reps. Honestly, you basically spend the weekend doing just so many reps of going down and doing breath holds, which, as you can imagine, are holding your breath as long as possible. But it's interesting. One thing, for instance, I'd never experienced before, really, is when you hold your breath a certain length of time, you experience what's called contractions. So it's basically involuntary hiccups of ab movements of your going like this. In fact, if you're not careful to control it, you'll gasp underwater, which obviously you don't want. So you need to be very careful, not open your mouth if you're having contractions, something like that. Anyway, yeah. So final day, I was getting down to 15 meters, and I couldn't get to 20. And they were okay. This is last chance to get 20. And I literally was like, okay, well, at this point, there's a safety diver, right? So if I pass out, I can't believe this is the second story I'm telling you, but I can pass out. I was just thinking about that. If something happens, worst case is I'd be brought to the surface, and I'm fine. So we're just gonna go to 20 meters and figure out what happens. So last dive, I go all the way to 20 meters, and I think upon realizing, oh my god, I actually made it. For context, you have a line next to you that shows the depth every 5 meters, so you can kind of see it has little knots tied on it. Okay, the black knot is 20 meters, right? And I'm like, when I finally got there, I look up, and you can see the ocean surface, but of course you're literally 60 feet, you're almost 70 feet away from it. So it's actually almost faint, but it stretches forever, and it was such a cool thing to see because I don't even know. It's nowhere else do you get the view of something. It's like shimmering and light. You've probably looked under a pool. It looks cool, but the difference is it's just so far away from you, and it's like forever. It looks like a portal to the other world. Almost, I would actually say it's like a Stranger Things. It's like a portal upside down. You're looking up, and you forget kind of what direction is up and everything. And so you're like, oh my god, just this giant wall stretching every direction, and it was just very, very pretty. And of course, then I went up, and I had many contractions on the way up, but made it. And it was very, very cool experience. I have freedived since, but I haven't gone as deep. I think obviously in the confines of having a safety diver and all these things, I don't want to go as deep as I did there. But that was a really cool time. Yeah, I don't know. It's very cool. I surprisingly actually have not gotten my scuba dive license because of the way these events worked out, and I was by far the only one who had ever done that, of course. So yeah, it was pretty cool. Like,
you're the only one to what?
Sorry, I was by far the only one who had not scuba dived.
Oh.
Most people do free diving. They're like, oh, I've done so much scuba diving, and I want the freedom of not moving a tank. Or actually, this is what I was. Most people in our group were spear fishermen.
What?
And they were like, yeah, very crazy. We had I'll say two types of people.
that makes sense, actually.
Two types of people in our group. A was Marines. Kind of not surprising. Like, they were either current Marines, wanted to get better at, like, being able to dive deeper, things like this, hold their breath in the water, do training with that. Maybe they're former Marines, so they're really into it. Or spear fishermen, when you have a lot of gear on you and you're, like, breathing through respirators, there's a lot of bubbles, scare away the fishes, so it's so much easier to spearfish when you have free diving. And on Hawaii, it's a big thing, actually, people will do a spearfish. So about half our group was spear fishermen, half our group was Marines, and then there's me and Rachel, who are none of that. Now, Rachel is an avid scuba diver, so she had some more experience. But for me, yeah, it was cool. I mean, I obviously want to get my scuba diving license also, but it was a really cool experience.
Do you think there's something spiritual or something more something you got out of that experience?
You know, I don't
yourself?
think, like, it definitely wasn't to the level of Kilimanjaro, right? Like, there's no question the level of difficulty or anything was not near that. But I think it was just, like, a lesson of, like, it was again showing, like, okay, like, it's a matter of will. Like, I don't think, like, the fact that I got to 20 meters in the last one, like, I think it was just a matter of, like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to full send it. You just have to full send things, and I think it was just a matter of that. And I think it was more of a lesson on along that lines. And also, I think a lesson of just, like, same as Kilimanjaro, you just should go do things. You don't need to think a lot about, am I going to be prepared? Am I going to be okay? All these things, you should just do it. Most things in life, especially in the U.S., but even outside of the U.S., most of the time, you know, do your research. But ours is safe, yeah.
I find it funny that we started this by saying, I think you said, as long as it doesn't kill me, I'll be fine. As long as the risk doesn't kill me, I'm willing to take it. And
well, I'll just say, a lot of people think I'm very risky. And I don't think of myself as risky because I think I don't. An example is motorcycles are very dangerous. And if you look at statistics of motorcycles, it's 200 times per mile more dangerous. I don't think I'd ever ride a motorcycle on a highway or anything like that. Because, yeah, I mean, I just think the numbers show that. If I'm afraid of something and the numbers show that I shouldn't be afraid, then I need to get over that fear. If the numbers show something, you actually have a real risk to this, then that makes sense. I think that's fair, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but to take yourself to the point where, I guess, where you faint or you're at the... Yeah. I guess that's like, you're not dead, but you're not
if I faint, what happens? You know what happens? Fire fucking crazy cool experience. Holy shit. Like, again, everything... I think that I'm not risky. I think the thing is I just see a lot of this stuff as, why is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if I pass out, you don't get... I mean, I know this is crazy thing, but, like, you don't get brain damage for a long time, actually. You can be passed out... if you pass out from going underwater, you can be passed out for 45 minutes without any brain damage. No, sounds crazy. Yeah, isn't that crazy? That's actually one of the things that they taught in the course. Freediving course is you can be passed out for a ridiculous amount of time without brain damage. So I knew I'm going to be fine. I mean, hell, if you're really being honest, that's not even a bad thing, man. That's just a crazy experience, and it's a very memorable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I heard about the Marines training, or for you to become a SEAL, it's like they will still pass someone who maybe failed, but failed because they passed up, because they brought themselves to that limit. Yeah. And so when you were telling your Kilimanjaro story, and then you're telling me about how you also took that to diving, I think that's a very good reflection of your character. It's like you take it to that level, you know, to the point where you pass out, but you don't also see that as a risk, which I think
one thing I'll say is, man, when you have direction, I really believe, at least especially for myself, I think when you have direction, it's like, you can do anything. You can do anything. Now, that's not easy. Finding direction is very hard. But man, when I have direction, or when I believe
that's why I think
when you can take
a lot of people have doom scrolling addictions, is because they are so uncertain, or they don't have a direction throughout the day. And so you need to minimize that nagging need that your mind is saying, I need something to work on.
Yeah, I totally agree. And then you go to social media, and then you You neutralize the need to do that, but you didn't actually, A, you didn't benefit your life, and B, when you actually are very productive with your day, you feel satisfied, and you're like, wow, I'm at peace.
Right.
With doom scrolling, the second you get off doom scrolling, you feel extremely not at peace. So you have to go back on to feel peaceful.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just a vicious cycle.
You know, knowing you, this goes back to our discussion about podcasts and books. I know you said you said you're trying to become or trying to read more books, and I know you listen to podcasts right now. What I'm surprised that hasn't come up yet is your obsession with movies. I know you're really in love with movies.
Yeah. Wait, actually, I'm actually surprised to hear you say that. I actually don't think I am so much.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I do really love movies, but I don't think I wouldn't describe myself the way you just said. I don't think I'm that. I don't think I'm.
Gotcha. Okay.
I think that. I mean, I could describe. I mean, I would say I do enjoy movies. I can talk about. I can say that. You know, I mean, I think that there's such a storytelling and being able to experience something. I don't know, especially with some movies. Man, it really immerses yourself in whatever, some lesson and stuff. I don't think. Yeah, I don't think I'm particularly obsessed with it because I do think you're not necessarily improving or experiencing something as much as. I don't know. I don't think I'm particularly obsessed with movies. I think, but I am. I do them.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. No,
So I guess I'll push back on that a little bit. Yeah.
no, that's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Because that was an assumption. I totally thought you were. I know Interstellar is your favorite
cinephile?
movie.
Yeah, I would say. I would say. So.
Point the camera
I mean,
to that poster over there.
no, for real. And it's so funny. I mean, yeah, I think Interstellar. I really just because it is such a captivating plot, and also the cinematography and what it stands for is so cool. I think that I'll actually talk about a different movie. Have you heard of Into the Wild?
No.
So highly would recommend. I think especially you would. So it's based on a true story. This is like another one of my very all-time favorite movies. Into the Wild is based on a true story of this guy who he gets into Harvard, and instead of going to Harvard, he runs away from home and ends up saying, I'm going to travel as a nomad. I'm just going to live life completely nomadically. I believe, humans should. And this movie is about how he stays with homeless encampments in different cities. In a city, he runs on trains and then works on farms, and he does, different things. I mean, so many different things. The whole point is that, he refuses to have any kind of technology, no cell phone, anything like that. And he just believes in living life very rawly. And, even if I'm not actually doing that right now, I'm not doing that right now. I really believe in kind of lessons to take away from that. I think that kind of how we evolved to be in this 50-person communities that will go nomadically, stay together, bond together, and all these things, right? And we're with each other almost all the time, right? And I think as a society, we all live in our separate little boxes and giant buildings and apartments, and I just think that we kind of talked at the very, very beginning, but I think societal principles have really gone about convenience and avoiding uncomfortableness. And when in a house, in college, I always strove to live in a big house, a lot of people following this, right? And there are so many moments where I just want to be by myself. But I found that when I go out and I'm just like, nope, I can't do that. I have roommates or I have housemates, and I'm just even when I didn't have a roommate and I lived in a house, I would try to be like, if I feel like that, I still go out into the living room and do work there. Because I think, and every time I'm rewarded because I end up having a cool conversation with somebody. I end up feeling reinvigorated because, I probably wanted to be myself because I felt drained. And by talking to somebody, I no longer felt drained because you get livened by that conversation or anything related to that. And I think that this just echoes, how we evolved to be. And I think, I want to live by at least closer to in that kind of life.
Yeah, no, and that was so my old man died when I was around 12. Yeah. And I grew up with two what I call godfathers, people who aren't blood related to our family whatsoever, but have always, since I was born, they've lived with us. Yeah, absolutely. And my mom would like to tell me stories about why my dad loved India so much, or I think it was India, yeah. And what my dad really enjoyed about other countries was exactly what you said. It's like this unification of not only family, but friends. It's like there's a story that I heard online where there's 7 brothers, or a group of 7 people who all combine bank accounts, all live under the same house, and all help each other in the best way that they can. And it's like, that is such a foreign concept in the States. And, for the longest time, even in high school, I didn't tell people about my godfathers because I knew this was different, you know? But I think now I'm very appreciative that I have that perspective and how beneficial it could be. I'm just trying to understand, how do you even replicate that? How do you even come close to convincing people that this is the way, or reminding people that it's not about the resources, it's not about the individual, it's what you can do collectively that's so strong.
I mean, you know, I think first of all, you mentioned how to convince people. It's hard. I think because we've grown up in a culture that says that, hey, if you don't feel like going and seeing people, you should just chill by yourself. I feel like people are really okay with doing that, right? And because of that, obviously, study after study shows that Americans are so isolated. I think people who are isolated, it's because when they're uncomfortable, they don't feel like going out. They don't go up and they don't do the uncomfortable thing, talking to strangers. And then they end up isolated. They end up alone in an apartment. And it's like, because when they do want to see people, there's no one to see. That's reflecting on, when humans live nomadically, it's like, yes, it's true. When you didn't want to see people, you still had to see people. But I actually think that's so much more better, how we evolved, how it should be as a human. I don't know. First of all, I do think there's ways to change the culture in small ways, but I also think a large part of it really is, don't try to change everyone's opinion. Try to find people who agree with you. And, I mean, for instance, I've been looking into houses in SF that believe in communal living. And I was thinking about, I'm probably going to, at some point, either join one of those houses, or I really believe in the idea of the people you're working with, living with them. If you start a company, for instance, I believe that when you live together, you becomes, I mean, first of all, yeah, from a perspective of the company, there's so many improvements. But second of all, let's not even ignore that for a second. I think it brings everyone closer together, working towards something as friends, as community, as a family. And I just think it's more reflective of how we evolved and what it means to be human. I think that, I don't know. I really wonder what life would be if, instead of having the baseline be 9 to 5, living in an apartment, commute alone, all these things, what if the baseline was everyone lived together and I don't know, what if we tried to emulate some sort of nomadicness, Because, I mean, I think that lifestyle also kind of emulates the both repeated seeing each other, the spaced repetition of seeing each other every day, but also the novelty of doing different things, seeing different landscapes, maybe something happens differently.
I think it's political, right? Because if we were all united, then obviously there would be a lack of control from the government, or there was a better way I wanted to phrase this. Yeah, I guess it would be power. It's like it's hard to control you if you have the backs of everyone.
Yeah.
Oh, and so how that's reflected is, if you have multiple people under one roof, it's labeled as poverty, right?
Well, okay, so I think I'll maybe push back. I don't know if what I'm going to say is going to maybe completely disagree with you or not. I don't think it's political in the sense of, we need to divide people. I think it's more, call it political, call it whatever. I think it's a function of larger systems. Okay, so if you talk to anyone who works at big tech, right, they say, oh, well, I work on this button, and I'm not really friends with my coworkers as much. I work on this button, and I have, you're kind of, how do I say this, more lone wolf, right? It's actually kind of counterintuitively at first. When you go to a startup, in a small company, you might think there are less people, so therefore, I don't know, you have each person interacts with less people maybe, but it's always never like that. It's very determined. The smaller the company, the more fluid their lives are, the more fluid the relationships are between each other, between friendships and all these things, the more closer to the kind of thing we're getting at. I think the reason why our society is structured like that is not because someone said we need to be divisive. I think someone said, just if I'm trying to create Google, I'm trying to control, 50,000 employees, I need to create systems that manage systems that manage systems. So many layers of abstraction of systems. I think the same way, governments and evolutionarily culture. So what is evolutionary culture? It's the idea that cultures that evolve to be better at spreading their beliefs. Just organisms can evolve. Anything that can A, reproduce itself, and B, change, can evolve too. And cultures are the same way, right? Cultures that evolved to be good at spreading themselves are the things that we are left with in society. So as an example, I mean, the culture of, this is so random, but Native Americans, their culture was nomadic, but that culture led them to not be productive, at least, not as productive, at least as more Western cultures where you can have bigger systems that work together, right? Obviously, when you have bigger systems, there's more efficiency, you can have a greater output because of that, and because of that, evolution kind of basically said this is going to be the way, right? And I think that it's a matter of big systems that cultures that are the way we described are good at controlling big systems, and because of evolution, how evolution acts on culture, we end up with cultures that are good at running big systems.
Gotcha. Okay. So, in other words, or actually, I don't think it's, I thought you were going in a direction of saying you have to simplify everything in order for it to work.
It's not about simplification. It's about, like I said, it's about creating all those layers of abstraction of systems that manage systems. When you end up with a bunch of those boxes in an apartment complex, you manage, this block and everything, you need things to be rigid. You can't have things be fluid.
Yeah.
Right? In order to manage it and predict its behavior. And so it's much harder if you have someone living nomadically, for instance, you can't. That's not going to be a system that can act as a higher level.
I mean, we're tied to our addresses. We're tied to
yeah,
so much
exactly.
Of our,
You're not going to be able to support bigger people. Yeah.
That's a very cool take. I never thought about it that way.
Yeah, I think evolution, it's an interesting concept. I think evolution can act on a lot of things in the way I said, where if it can spread and change, then evolution acts on it. And I think that explains a lot of things in our world today.
Evolution can spread and change.
So if a thing can spread and change, in order to act on evolution, I think literally the biological definition or something is something has to be able to reproduce and has to be able to react to its environment. Actually, that's the definition of life. It has to be able to, really interesting thing about it, as long as all it has to do is be able to reproduce and be able to alter itself.
Yeah. There's a text that I'm just reading in my class right now where they were like, what we're trying to interpret the idea of how did our ability to explain germs, how were we able to explain germs once we started thinking about them as seeds? I think that was kind of the topic of it after reading it. So that's kind of what you're reminding me of right now. It's how do we explain evolution?
Yeah, because we're effectively doing selective breeding.
Yeah.
Well, yes, yeah, exactly.
Selective breeding.
Because they probably didn't
culture,
know about
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. They probably didn't know evolution at the time, so they thought it more about selective breeding.
Before we wrap, is there one final message you want to tell the entire world if we were to both die today? Tomorrow, if we were both die tomorrow.
A lot of buildup. That's what I was gonna say. I mean, really, it goes back to I think what I live for which is that you should maximize your life. I thought about using this word earlier, life maxing. You don't just go all out. I think the circles that this is probably gonna go out to, if it's just people at Berkeley, I think those people already know how to maximize, maybe their career or their impact, which is first of all 100% something you should do. And if you're not doing that, I totally believe in doing that. So I'll say especially, but for those circles, you should put the same tenacity into your outside life, into whatever you want to do outside of, your career. If you're into even just partying, how do you bring that to another level? Let's host things. Let's make the difference that you see in the world. You think that's cool? Okay, host the biggest one. Spread a culture that you, whatever you want to do, make it seen, go all out. And I think the other thing is, find community. Push yourself outside your comfort zone, especially when it comes to talking to people, and people who are maybe different from you, and embrace the power of community. I mean, and surround yourself with people I think for people who are like-minded that, believe in kind of what I'm saying, have really tried to explore. I also mentioned, I want to start a community for those people. And so I think anyone interested in that should reach out. I mean, I could leave my contact in the bio. I don't know if I should just share right now, but
Go ahead.
Anyone who, first of all, I mean, I'm going to be very reachable. And so if anyone wants to just talk or do something that you think would fulfill any of the things I talk about, I mean, you should just text me, 913-313-2100. And also, like I said, I'd be starting up that Life Questers thing soon, which will be more of a formal setting. But even before then, just text me. And I think that pretty
means
much wraps
it too,
it up.
guys. Because his LinkedIn bio literally says like reach out to me for any help. Like he means it.
I mean, I love teaching people. I love helping people, and just meeting new people in general. It doesn't even have to be to help them. I think that's obviously, hopefully, something that's come across, and so reach out to me.
Ethan Jagoda, everyone, thank you so much. I think not only was I able to, I feel energized after this. Like truly, it's like everything from your stories, picking your brain. I feel like I think I got a lot out of you today that like even knowing you for a long time, like I never knew. And this has been an incredibly fun conversation. And I really love the intensity you move through life with. And everything that you do is very simple, and yet it's very impactful and also comes from a lot of experience from yourself. So thank you so much. Really respect the principles too that like you have. So that's a wrap.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me on, Magnus. It's been a it's been a great time.
If you made it this far into the episode, I wanted to personally thank you for your support. It means the world to me that you took a few hours out of your day and found value in the conversations that I feel lucky enough to have. This show is possible because of your continued support, and I wanted to offer you a deal. If you subscribe to this channel, I will spend every waking moment I have to deliver the highest quality guests for you to learn from and connect with offline. Is that a deal? All right, I'll see you in the next one.